Welcome back to He's a Giant, a pod about all things college football and all things Giants football. I'm your host, Sal, here with my co-host, Monty, back after a little bit of a hiatus. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Fighting some of these allergies right now, so we'll make it through. It's my allergy game.
Monty is lying to you guys. He's actually got a horrible infectious disease. He won't name what it is, but it's very contagious. It goes right through the screen. I'm immune. I've been taking medication.
He's a
Um,
doctor. He would know.
I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. Welcome to everybody who's here. Let's see who we got. A few people in the room. We're gonna let people stream in. We're gonna shoot this out on Twitter. Um, um, what do we call it? Depth chart diving.
Depth chart diving, retweet. I'm sending it all out, and yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. This episode we're gonna get into both the 2024 schedule of the Giants because we haven't done anything with that yet, and then we're also going to just kind of go position by position and kind of give some of our outlook of where we are with each position and how we think all this is going to work together, who we think is going to start, who we think should start, all of that type of stuff.
Absolutely. So we're gonna try to go through the schedule first for you guys, and I apologize. I'm just gonna push this out, get the word out to everybody. We're a little bit rusty, a little out of practice for the last couple of weeks, enjoying life without draft madness. But we want to go through the schedule for sure with you guys and talk about what we think is going to happen. What's up to everybody in the chat, and then we'll go a little bit into the depth chart. We're gonna use the Our Lads Giants depth chart to go through this thing, which I think is the best depth chart there is. They have like the most comprehensive and up to date depth chart. So
Yep.
we're gonna use that, but we're gonna go through the schedule first. But before we do, a couple of things going on in Giants land. OTAs just started. Oh, by the way, before we get into that, for those of you who are in the chat, we would appreciate it. We thank you guys for always being here, but we'd appreciate it if you could just get the word out, retweet us on Twitter, and put in your chats, whatever. Let's get people in here and let the room build up a little bit while we get into things. But
Hit that thumbs up too.
and hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Yes, as usual, late 3 minutes and 42 seconds. That's right, Peter. It wouldn't be our pod if I wasn't late by about 3 minutes, right?
Sal's not in Coughlin time.
I'm never on Coughlin time. All right.
But yeah, man, we had OTAs this week. We haven't gotten a ton of reports on it. We got a little bit more today because I think the beat reporters were allowed there today. Then I think it's the first time they were allowed there this week. So we finally got a little bit of information from them. And there was some cool stuff that came out. I think the most notable thing that came out, both of us are tweeting about it today, and I thought it was really exciting, is apparently Andre Patterson is going to be working with the edge rushers this year. Him and I'm blanking on the name of our outside linebacker coach, but they're going to be working together, and they're going to look at the interior defensive line, the edge as one unit to some extent, and try to build some cohesiveness and let one of our great assistant line coaches work with our incredible edge rushers. So I know that's something you and I both talked about as something we wanted to see. And it's really exciting to see that the Giants are going forward with that.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems strange. What's up, everybody? It just seems strange that like you invest these high round picks like in a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, and you pay all this money to Dexter Lawrence, and you have Azeez Ojulari, who you invested a high pick on the year before Joe Shane got here, and you don't have them, the guys who are primarily pass rushers, you don't have them working with a guy who's known as like the best D-line coach there is in the NFL, a guy who has taken prototypes like Kayvon Thibodeau before and turned them into monsters, specifically a guy like Danielle Hunter,
Yep.
who is very much in the Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns prototype. In fact, you tweeted out the athletic profile comp between Brian Burns and Danielle Hunter, and they're identical. It's incredible.
Almost exact same RAS score and very similar like numbers all throughout: weight, height, arm length, 40, all that shit.
And Hunter, if you remember, like had a little bit of a slow start to his career. Like it took him a while to get going. And once he got going with coaching from Andre Patterson, he really took off. And now you saw he just got a massive short-term deal from Houston, going there to try to win a championship. But the guy had just a crazy year last year, and I think Andre Patterson can do that. specifically known to, work with guys on their handwork, hand fighting and their moves with their hands. And what's Kayvon? If there's a knock on Thibodeau, it's hand fighting, right? It's using his
Yep.
power from his upper body. So it's really interesting to see that, that well, it's really good to see that these guys are finally going to get the chance to work with Patterson. I'm pumped about that, especially when Bowen depends on a four-man front to get there. Essentially, right? You can call it a 3-4, whatever, but he basically has four down linemen on like the plurality of his reps. He
Yeah.
expects those front four to get pressure. He blitzes only about, I think the number was like 7% of the time or something, or 10% of the time, and
Yeah.
those are
Not a lot.
usually and those are not like the Wink Martindale style blitzes. Those, Wink Martindale brought in a lot of simulated pressure, and you couldn't tell where it was coming from. Whereas, you know, with Bowen, he brings a lot of creeper blitzes. And I shout out to our friend Authentic who brought this up a long time ago. Creeper blitzes are largely nickel blitzes where they're not showing pressure until the
Yeah.
snap, and then they fire off the snap and attack from the nickel. So or from the inside linebacker role. So you're basically, for the most part, asking your forefront guys to get there. You want to maximize their talent. Having them work with Patterson is awesome. But I got to ask you, man, what does that say about, like, what I mean, there was a quote from Kayvon Thibodeau today. Talking Giants retweeted it. They clipped it where he said that in the past, the interior guys and the outside guys just didn't work together. They were not in sync, and they didn't work together at all. And it was almost like two separate groups completely living in different worlds. Like, what does that say about the whole Wink Martindale style of coaching these guys? I mean, I don't want to take shots at the guy now that he's gone. I liked Wink, but
Yeah.
I mean, that was eye opening. What did you think?
Look, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that went on during this Wink and Dable era. I think there was his side, our side, and there's the truth. And there was obviously, I think, truths to both sides. And I think something we kept hearing was that like Wink kind of like kept to himself. Him and like the Wilkins guys were kind of like their own. Those guys were their own group. And I don't think it was like maybe as like dramatized as some of these like the Paul Schwartz of the world's made it. But I do think there's the idea of like he didn't want like Andre Patterson to, like working with Wilkins guys. I think he really wanted to give Drew Wilkins the chance to like put his thumbprint on the edge room and like work it in his vision. And I think it ultimately is working to the detriment of this team. One, in the sense of not using a great guy like Andre Patterson to coach these guys, but two, it's like there really isn't, in my opinion. I don't know how, maybe a lot of this is common. I don't know. Like maybe a lot of teams run a 3-4 this way, but what Kayvon's saying makes sense to me. Like, I think there should be a lot of relation between the interior defensive line and the edges. I think, why can't that be a one group in some senses? Like how, you look how well the offensive line works together, and there, that is one group. I know gets a little bit funky with 3-4 because instead of like just defensive ends and defensive tackles, you have outside linebackers technically, and the roles change. And I do think there's value of having two different position coaches, but there's a lot they can work on coming together. And it's a lot, what Shane Bowen's going to do. There's a lot of like twists and stunts, and that's the type of stuff where these guys need to work together and build that chemistry to do that type of stuff. So, I'm happier for the way we are moving forward, at least in that regard, with away from Wink. There's a lot that we miss him from Wink, but that I'm excited about.
It makes me wonder, was there more to the Wink Martindale, problems with Brian Dable than just personality clashes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was something we had brought up in real time last year, and a few of us talked about it. Like, what, like, do you think that Kayvon is working with, Andre Patterson? I mean, he's right there, and there were issues with Kayvon's pass rush. His pass rush win rate was not great last year, and he wasn't developing, consistently as a pass rusher, even though clearly he has the talent to. So I think we had brought that up, and hey, we would like to see him work with him. And I think it was pretty clear he wasn't. So you got to wonder, was that an issue of contention with Brian Dable? And I'm just
Yeah.
speculating, but like with Joe Shane and Brian Dable, they're like, hey, we invest premium assets into these guys, and you're not, you're having them do stuff over here when maybe they should be working with the D line unit and getting there with four.
Yeah.
So
I
that,
mean, I would say,
that
especially when, they clearly weren't happy with the job that Drew Wilkins was doing. I mean, he was a guy that they wanted to get rid of him. That became a point of contention with Wink Martindale. So the fact that they weren't working together and it was just Wilkins and he didn't think he was doing a good job, that's just adds on to the contention there.
Yep. So I'm, any way you slice it, I'm happy that these guys are working with Pedersen now. I want to see Kayvon develop as a pass rusher. I think his hand fighting has to develop. His upper body usage has to become better. He has to develop a better pass repertoire. But you saw Danielle Hunter do those things. So I'm excited for
Yep.
both Burns and Kayvon working with him. So that was awesome news, I thought. And it was like the best news of the week, honestly, for me.
100%.
There are some other issues that that a little bit of information that's come out of OTAs for what it's worth. The Giants have largely announced that Cordell Flott has the inside track to be the starting cornerback 2 on the outside, opposite Deontay Banks. And it seems like it's his job to lose at this point. We're hearing it over and over again. Like he's going to be working with the ones. He's going to get a shot. Cordell Flott, if you guys remember, was our 3rd round pick in Joe Shane's first draft. He was our 2nd 3rd round pick. I think he was picked 81 overall after Josh Azudu went at 67 overall. Flott was viewed widely as a massive reach by Joe Shane. I mean, most people had Flott with a 5th or 6th round grade. And for him to go where he did was kind of shocking. He came in very undersized. He weighed 175 pounds. I think he ran like a 4.45 or a 4.5 40, something. It wasn't anything elite.
Yeah, it was like a 4.51, I think.
Yeah, it was somewhere in that territory. But he was a good nickel corner in college. Aggressive style of play, but really kind of an undersized guy, not the best tackler because of his size. And we saw that play out in nickel the first couple of years. You saw him get some decent reps at outside corner. Wasn't a lot of volume, but he did well against A.J. Brown in the limited reps he got. So they're moving him to the outside and giving him a chance to win the job. So let's start there. What do you think about fear the flop season?
Yeah, man. One thing I didn't like that I heard was that apparently he's 177 now. So he's up a whopping 2 pounds since we drafted him. And that was kind of like, yeah, we get a red shirt year. We're going to get you in the weight room. We're going to, bring him up to NFL size, put on 2 pounds. So, that kind of sucks. But I like Cordell Flott, and I think he's done a good job in the slot. But the issue is he's still small, which means he's still going to struggle with tackling, and which is a problem for a slot corner, but especially a problem for a slot corner in Shane Bowen's system. So I think at this point, I mean, like you said, he has some good reps on the outside. I think I'm all for moving him to the outside. And look, I think just ask him to make or break his career out there, because I think he's more likely, in my opinion, to succeed as an outside corner with his coverage abilities. And if he's not putting on any weight, then ever suddenly becoming some great tackler in the slot and being able to hold up there. So I think he's ultimately going to, he has height, he has length, he's just skinny. So, I hope he wins the job. I'm not sure he will. I'm not sure he won't, but I'm definitely cautiously optimistic that he could do it. But I'm rooting for him without a doubt.
I mean, Jerome Henderson was singing his praises, saying he's done an outstanding job with Banks out on the outside. I don't know what he's basing that on. I mean, they just started, but this is a question I have for you, and I'm a believer in Cordell Flott. I think there's something there with talent, but do you think that he is being viewed by the team and being pushed by them as cornerback 2 on the outside because he's earned that distinction with his work, in practice and whatever he's done with the team that we don't see? Or do you think they basically gave up on him at the nickel position, drafted Andrew Phillips, and are just trying to find a place to put him?
I think a little bit of both. I think if he was not gonna cease. If he was a 5th round pick or something like that, I don't think they'd be pushing him as aggressively as they are. I do think that they see upside with him. I think they have seen flashes with him, and I do think they want him to win the position. But I do think a guy like Nick McLeod, who I feel like has been and we'll talk about this when we get to the depth chart, but a guy that I feel like who has been more productive in his time here, would probably, all else equal, have the inside track to get that job because he simply performed better in the position. So, like, I think Cordell Flott is getting every chance to win the job because this regime drafted him and where they drafted him, but I don't think it's totally unwarranted either. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a little bit of both. I do think they're trying to justify the pick because, and this is not really his fault, but the other guy taken in the third round there, who got taken ahead of him, Josh Azudu, is he's really been pushed down the depth chart, and he's taking he's taking swing tackle reps right now, and I don't know what's going to happen over the course of the rest of OTAs. For all we know, they're just doing that in the beginning, and they'll slide him to guard and work him there. We don't know, right? But it does look like he's low on the guard depth chart, which is what they drafted him to be. And man, it would be a hell of a miss in your third round with two good third round picks in that draft to have to say neither one of these guys could make our team as impact players, right? They're just depth low end of the roster guys. So I think there's a little bit of that. I think Flott has acquitted himself more than Azudu, with his play, but
Yeah.
I still, as much as I like the guy, I'm like, you're 177 pounds. You're not an outside corner from college. You're being converted essentially. There's a lot of projection here, a lot of projection in terms of how he's going to play in this Bowen system on the outside on his own. And again, we have some, pretty good outside receivers in this division that we're going to go up against, and so we'll see how he holds up. I mean, maybe the one matchup he might do okay with is, I would imagine he would draw Jahan Dotson,
Yeah.
where I think he can match up from a size standpoint pretty
Or
well.
even Terry, Devontae Smith, they're those are all kind of thinner. CD Lamb, even he's going to be owning him because he's Lamb, but Lamb's a thinner guy. But he's nasty.
But he plays a physical game, a very physical
that's true.
game. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see how he does. I'm curious to see. It's going to be one of the stories going into this year if he could actually win the job coming out of camp and coming out of preseason and how he performs in these big games. Because if you remember, Flott was a guy who played better in real games than he ever practiced, right? So maybe that's what this is about. I don't know. But
I was about to say the same thing because it's interesting. And we'll see if this carries over to actual training camp, especially when media members are out there way more often. But look, he always sucks in practice. So it's good to hear that he's doing well because I kept trying to put him out there and he kept doing terrible job in camps and stuff like that. So, it's good to hear he's finally doing well in camps because he's played decent on the field, but he could never justify winning the starting job in practice. So hopefully he can do that this time around.
Speaking of players who are potentially being shifted or changed a little bit after their draft, a lesser profile guy, but Jordan Riley, the Giants, I think he was their last draft pick of the 2022 class, if not or maybe the second to last.
I think Owens was the last, but second last.
So Jordan Riley looks way slimmed down. And remember, he got tons of praise last year as a good run defender and was learning well under Patterson. And Patterson didn't put him in early and said he needs more time to develop. He needs more time to develop, right? Remember, they held him back.
Yeah, he was protecting him.
Right. And then you see him and he looks like he's lost a good 15, 20 pounds from when he came into the league. He came in at 6'5", 338 pounds. And I mean, the picture I saw of him, I don't know, it's hard to tell in some of these profile shots, but he looks like he's down like firmly under 320, maybe in the 310 range. And so the question is, if that's the case, if they went and told Jordan Riley, hey man, lose 20 pounds and come in here, why and what role do you think you could see him playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the natural thought here is, can he, you have Dexter Lawrence as your nose guard, and there's a clear opening there for somebody to come in and win the 3-tech position. And do they want Jordan Riley to come in and win that job? I mean, look, they didn't invest in the interior defensive line at all in the draft. And that was, something you and I were not very happy about. But, I mean, partially because we feel it's a need and it feels like it's a strength of this team they can build on with the defensive line. But also, we just sung the praises of Andre Patterson. We're like, get this guy working with these guys. Get a very good player working with him. But with that said, I trust Andre Patterson potentially, find a diamond in the rough here. I'm not going to, count on it, but I'm with now that we're in this position and there isn't a clear person for that job, I hope Jordan Riley wins it. And I'm gonna keep my eye on him because in the limited reps he had, he played very well. And he got brought in as the developmental guy. They said it themselves. You really don't hear it often how blunt they put it when they drafted him. They're like,
Yeah.
this guy's tape sucks, but we talked to him and like we felt he could develop. But like the tape wasn't good, like but we like him. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was eye-opening because, like you said, they didn't take anybody in a strong D-line class, at least for specifically the three techs that they were looking for, that they would have been theoretically looking for to replace Leonard Williams and to stick next to Dexter Lawrence. Again, this defense is predicated on four guys getting there. They run stunts and twists about 30% of the time. It's a lot of reps where they're expecting these guys to be athletic and stunt to get to the quarterback. So you really need a pass rushing three tech who has some athleticism and some quickness to him. You would have never thought of Jordan Riley as being that kind of a D lineman at 338 pounds or whatever he was. But he did show some significant strides as a run defender last year. He showed a lot of improvement, I think, from his college tape there. He's good with his hands, and I think you saw a little bit more athleticism than you would have thought coming out, is how I remember viewing him. What if they told this guy, "Hey, slim down because we are going to ask you to do stunts. We are going to ask you to get skinny sometimes and one gap and rush the passer." So it's interesting. Maybe he is a guy that they're viewing as a candidate to win the starting job opposite Dexter Lawrence, like as a three tech. I wouldn't have thought of him as a three tech, but if he really slimmed down that much, I can maybe see it.
Yeah, man. It'll be interesting when we get into the depth chart here to kind of like see about that potential path to him, winning that job.
So that's one to keep an eye on, and there's not a lot of depth at that position. We'll get into that, but one to definitely watch. A couple other, well, actually, just one other thing before we get into the schedule. What show about the Giants we complete without talking about everybody's favorite son, Daniel Jones? Danny
Yep.
Dimes season. It's his time of year. This is his time to shine, where he looks faster than ever and healthier and like showing more velocity and all the fun reports coming out again. But he clearly is in my opinion, the undisputed starter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's really much of a competition going on here, no matter what some people want to think. And I don't think there's any chance that Daniel Jones is not the starter on day one, unless he is physically unable to play.
Yeah,
So, what do you think about him so far?
yeah, man. It's trending towards that way. I mean, he is out there. He is participating in 7-on-7s, and we are only in May. Dan Duggan spoke to it. Jordan Renan spoke to it. It seems like he is setting a major setback. Pending that, he will be the starter week 1. I think we're seeing that right now. We'll see if he struggles immensely or something like that, and somebody can pass him. But this is the time Daniel Jones shines. So I don't see it when the bullets aren't flying and he is in training camp and he's in shorts. That is when Daniel Jones is at his best. So we'll
This
see.
is his, yeah, this is his pre-Super Bowl warm-up era.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll see. I mean, listen, there's not. I don't. We'll probably have time before the season starts to really get into a deeper dive discussion about the quarterback room and what the implications are for Daniel Jones going into the season. I think a lot of us talk about it ad nauseum. I've sort of shied away from the topic a little bit, um, but I will say this: he has
Mhm.
yet another shot to do something with a roster. And he will inherit this year probably the best, at least on paper, the the best O line he's ever had, and by far the best wide receiver room he's ever had.
Yep.
So, put it together and, ask yourself this. If you took this Giants roster, which we're going to get into, but just you and me, Monty, having this discussion, you took this roster on offense and you said, I'm going to give you a league average quarterback. Just name just down the middle a league average quarterback. And I'll give you one, Baker Mayfield. I think he's kind of
Yep.
like right down the middle, like probably rank as like the 16th or 17th best quarterback on most lists, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah. Something like that.
What would your honest expectation of production be from both Baker Mayfield with the weapons and the O-line that the Giants have right now? And in what would that translate to in terms of average points per game?
I think it would be somewhere down the middle. I think it would be how as far as the quarterback can take him. I think we're getting to the point that obviously like the offensive line has issues. Almost every NFL team can say that. It's a league wide problem with the offensive line. But I think, assuming Malik Neighbors comes in and is the talent that we think is, obviously, rookies are going to start a little bit slower. That's just how rookies are, but he's a fantastic talent. He's picking 6 overall. I think this is the type of offense that can just get taken as far as the quarterback can take it. I think like it's that kind of like offense. It's not gonna this offense isn't gonna carry a quarterback, but it's also not going to like limit a quarterback. I think it's purely up to the quarterback at this point to carry it. And I think a league average guy would be somewhere right down the middle.
So last year, I just looked up the quarterback league average stats. So let me ask you if this would be fair for a league average quarterback with this room. 3,800 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, scoring about 23, 24 points per game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's
Right.
probably about my expectations if I felt more comfortable on our quarterback.
Right. Well, I'm just saying a league average, just a
Yep. Mhm.
almost like essentially like the cutoff for a replacement level part, essentially is how I'm looking at it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we'll get into the more detail of this at another time, but we'll see. All this other stuff like the clips from camp, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. Like let's see it translate to points. We're there now, right? Like just put up the points. Let's get an offense going. All
Agreed.
right. Before you have to call 911, let's move on with this episode. What do you think?
Yeah, wanna get into the schedule, and then we'll finish off with the depth chart?
Absolutely. So we're gonna go game by game through the schedule. We'll go through for the current lines on each of these games and what we kind of expect wins and losses wise. And so,
Yeah,
why don't
I
we get
can pull it
started?
up too.
Yeah, can you? Yeah, if you can share it, perfect. All right, week one, the Giants start off at home. Everybody knows this by now against the Minnesota Vikings. Presently, I believe the Giants are a -1 favorite at home,
Yep,
which essentially is like saying you're a wash or a slight underdog on neutral territory. Um, but the Giants are a slight favorite in this game. We don't know who the Vikings quarterback is going to be to start the game. I doubt it's going to be JJ McCarthy because listening to how Kevin O'Connell is planning on developing him, I think he has very specific metrics that he wants to see achieved before he puts him in the into live action.
yep.
I mean, he could hit them in camp, I suppose, in preseason, but I think we're mostly expecting it's going to be Sam Darnold and a Jihad Ward revenge game. That's right. It's the Jihad. So what do you think on this? What do you think with this game, Monty? Are the Giants? What do you think? Are you going to count this as a W or an L right now?
So, right now, I'm putting it as a W just because, the quarterback situation's so uncertain in Minnesota, and that's just we're gonna go over some games here, and this is a lot of tough games in the Giants' schedule, and I think it's one they have to take advantage of, and they have to take advantage of the quarterback situation here. But you did mention something to me that the idea of a Brian Flores revenge game. And I thought it was a good point, and I'll let you get into it. But they that is something where especially we're expecting Daniel Jones to be out there, where if nobody quite can bring pressure like Brian Flores and Wink Martindale, those guys are kind of the two kings at it. And they're going to blitz the shit out of Daniel Jones, and Brian Flores is going to have a chip on his shoulder to try to get back at the Giants for screwing him over. At least how he thinks it went down. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think we should keep track of our wins and losses and just we'll have different views on this. So I'm just going to type them down. We can review them. Um, I'm counting this one as a loss, and I'll tell you why. It does. I think this is an even game for a lot of reasons. I do think the Vikings are going to have a little bit of an advantage on the defensive side versus our offense to start off. Number one, the Giants have a brand new offensive line. we've seen before, like the last several years, without the reps these guys get and consistently getting reps in one spot, which I don't think is going to happen this offseason and this training camp. It looks like they're going to move around a lot. It can take a few weeks for these guys to gel. So if you have a little bit of a new unit essentially getting used to each other, this is a terrible first matchup in the sense that Brian Flores in general is bringing zero blitzes more than anybody other than like Wink Martindale. He brings the house, and the investments they made, even though they lost Daniil Hunter, they signed a couple of really high quality pass rushers on the outside in uh, Andrew Van Ginkel, who was on Miami, had a really good year last year, and Jonathan Grenard from Houston. That was a really solid pickup for those two. And then they go out and they trade up and they draft Dallas Turner, who the outside linebacker, the edge rusher from Alabama, if you remember, was a complete sociopath in
Yeah.
college, right?
Yeah,
He fits Brian Flores to a T, right? He's out
he
there trying to
does.
kill. He wants to harm you. If you guys don't remember from the draft stuff, and you want to know who Dallas Turner is, just look up Dallas Turner and Jaden Daniels, and
Or
you'll see
Jackson
what
Dart.
or Jackson Dart. Like he basically tries to have their bodies leave their heads.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible how he hits them. He's really trying. It looks like he's trying to hurt people. So I think those players coming on just like NASCAR packages and crazy blitzes are going to pose problems for the Giants. Just because not because I think they're better than the Giants, but I just think that offensive line might take a little time to gel. These are new bodies. And then I don't know what Jones is, right? I don't know what his
Yeah.
mobility is. You would think it's fine, but he's a guy that does struggle against the blitz. He doesn't do well against pressure. So I'm taking the Vikings in this game, not because of JJ McCarthy or anything like that. I just think this is a Brian Flores game more than anything. So that's where I'm counting that as an L.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely hear where you're coming from. I'm gonna give the Giants the W just because I feel like at the very least, this feels like almost a split to me. So I'm gonna go with my team there in that situation, especially at home. I usually, especially when it's close, I'll lean the home team. But yeah, I think it's a game they need to win. I think it's one of the few games that might have a quarterback advantage. We'll see how Jones looks, but yeah, that's one they got to come away with, in my opinion. But I could definitely see that being a loss.
All right, so we both have a one win, one loss there. Let's go to
Yep.
the game two. We're on the road against the Washington Commanders. Week two, the Giants are +3 underdogs. +3 underdogs. So basically, again, a pick'em game against the Commanders. The Commanders with their new quarterback Jaden Daniels, their new tight end Ben Sinnott, their new nickelback Mikey Sanderson. They stole my draft, but
Yep.
a bunch of solid rookies that they've had at least on paper. But it's still the Commanders, and I mean, I don't know you, man, but I'm not buying a loss on this one. What do you think? I'm taking the Giants for a win here.
So we'll talk this one out overall about how it will go. It's interesting. I just want to first talk the line here. Giants +3. That's interesting because home's only a point and a half. I believe that's it is. Maybe it's 2.5. I think it's a point and a half. But right there is like that means even on a neutral field, like we would still be like a point and a half underdog. So uh I don't know, man. I basically have a rule of thumb here, and we'll talk this game through. But I'll say my rule of thumb is basically whenever I go through these, division games are such a toss up in general. I always give the home team in division the win and the away team the loss, and I try to do that every year, no matter how good or how bad we are. And it kind of just a lot of times, these teams will end up splitting somewhere close to the division. So for that reason, I will be giving the Giants a loss here, but I think it's a very winnable game for the Giants. With that said, I think the Giants their goal should be to come out of the start of the season 2-0, and I think taking advantage of Jaden Daniels, who is a rookie and still learning the game, and he's not going to have a lot of help from his offensive line coach there with Bobby Johnson there. And they should go ahead and let Thibodeau and Brian Burns loose. And I definitely think they have a good chance to win this game. Daniel Jones has always shown up well in Washington games in the past. But with that said, just to remain consistent about how I always do this, I'm going to give them the loss here.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Giants the win here. And I totally understand your perspective, the division home game. But here's the thing. Rookie quarterback, as talented as Jaden Daniels is, rookie quarterback who we saw, you and I were lower on Daniels than others. Not that we were low on him at an absolute value, but relative value, because we saw a couple of things on tape that bothered us. One was once he broke contain and he started moving, he never threw the football, right?
Yep.
He scrambled to run. He just scrambled to run. And that in the NFL takes away a significant threat to the defense, right? Unless he suddenly changes in the NFL level where he's going to scramble and he's going to catch defenses like snoozing and throw the ball down the field. If you know that this guy's legs are moving and he's just going to run, NFL defenders are going to be able, in my opinion, to key in on him a little bit easier and take away his explosive run plays. So that means if you want to really maximize what he can do, I think you have to give him a pocket. Well, their offensive line coach is Bobby Johnson.
Yeah.
They hired Bobby Johnson. Like we were like clamoring to get rid of this guy. Bobby Johnson's their coach, and it's not just that. Their personnel on the offensive line is not any better. Like maybe it's a little bit better than last year, but it's largely the same caliber. Their left tackle is Cornelius Lucas, who was on the Bears. Their right tackle is Andrew Wiley, who's getting up there. They drafted Brandon Coleman in the 3rd round, the kid from I think
TCU.
he was from TCU. But I don't think he's slated to be their starting left tackle right away. They did sign Nick Allegretti, who's a good player for left guard. They signed Tyler Biadasz, who's a good player, as their center from Dallas. And Sam Cosmi is likely to be the right guard. I think he's a pretty good guard.
He's very good.
Yeah. But you're talking about 4 out of 5 new linemen. 4 out of 5 new linemen.
Yeah.
Right? In their second game with Bobby Johnson as coach and a quarterback who has a tendency to leave the pocket and run and not throw down the field.
Yep.
To me, this is a game that is just made to be miserable for the Commanders. And I can see the Giants. This is a game where I can see Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns like starting to rack up some sacks. I can see turnovers in this game, depending on who's playing out there. Like this might be the Tyler Nubin get your first pick game,
Yep.
Like I can see it in this game. A lot of pressure that on the Commanders in this game. So I don't think their defense, even though I get it. Like the argument that their coach is going to put a lot of pressure on the Giants, and he's that Dan Quinn always has Daniel Jones in hell. That is true. But Dan Quinn usually has better personnel than he has right now.
Yeah, they got rid of all their edge talent.
Right, they don't have edge talent. They have good interior alignment. I mean, they got Johnny Newton, but supposedly he's hurt.
Yep.
You still have Jonathan Allen. You still have Daron Payne. They're awesome, but your starting edge rushers are Cleveland Farrell and Dorrance Armstrong. I'm sorry, I think this is a game the Giants are going to win. Plus, Daniel Jones like powers up like Superman at the red sun when he sees the Commanders. So, like to me, this is a W. But we'll see.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, like my rule when I go through these aside, I think this game is I would put a W on matchup. Like I don't think this spread should be as at +3 and the Vikings should be -1. I think they should be much closer than that.
I agree. All right, so you have it as a loss for the Giants. I have it as a win. So
Yep.
we're, for different reasons, you and I are 1-1 both.
Yep.
For the Giants, have the Giants 1-1 going to week 3. Week 3, the Giants are at the Browns. You didn't list the timing of these games. I'm forgetting when they are. Does it have the dates and times there? That's
the Browns at a 1:00 game.
It's a Sunday 1:00 game on the road. The Giants are a 6.5-point underdog. I don't think this one needs a lot of discussion. The Browns have a vastly superior roster to the Giants. Vastly superior roster. They're just more mature. They've got a pretty loaded roster on the road. I don't care who's quarterbacking for the Browns. Like this is a tough game. So I think this is a pretty sound loss for the Giants.
Yeah, you better pray that Myles Garrett stays on Andrew Thomas's side and not on Evan Neal or Jermaine Illuminor's side, because even Andrew Thomas, who is clearly a top 5 tackle in the NFL when healthy, he is going to have his troubles with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is a very special player, and that Browns defense in general is very special, and this offense just is not, especially without a quarterback, is not in a position to compete with them. That is going to be a low-scoring game potentially. I could see the Giants, giving Sean Watson, whoever it's a quarterback time, a tough time, but I think the Browns ultimately are just a more talented team, and they'll win this game. I agree with you, especially on the road here.
All right. So we have the Giants. Both of us have 1-2 after the first 3 games. Week 4, this is a Thursday night game at home against the Cowboys. So this is their first, I think this is their first primetime game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it is.
So week 4, Thursday night against the Cowboys. They faced the Cowboys twice on Thursday. We'll get to that in a minute. But at home against the Cowboys, 4 days after flying back from Cleveland. Giants are 4-point underdogs at home to the Cowboys, so essentially like a touchdown underdog on neutral turf.
Yep.
The Cowboys did not do much to help their team this offseason. Really nothing. And there's a lot of drama going on about what will happen with the Dak Prescott situation after the year. That said, Dak Prescott has never lost to the Giants.
Nope.
Never.
Nope.
And he still has a better team than we do. So I hate it, but I'm counting this as a loss.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to stick the W just to be consistent. It's kind of just like at some point there's going to be an upset here. It's me upsets here, even if it's outside the division. I kind of just do it for consistency. But I'm also with you where it's like I believe it when I see it at this point. I'm tired of expecting wins against the Cowboys and just being disappointed every single time. I think we we closed the gap more than we deluded ourselves that we did last year, just purely off Dallas not doing anything. That's really the only reason. They let players walk and didn't get any better. They lost Dan Quinn, even though I think Mike Zimmer is a good coach. We'll see.
Mike Zimmer is going to be in base 3-4 the whole time.
I thought he was a 4-3 guy.
I'm sorry, excuse me, 4-3. He'll be in base 4-3 the entire time. There will be no funny business with him, right? It's just very aggressive play from base personnel, which by then I think the shot the Giants have to win the game is if their offensive line has gelled. This is around the time you'd expect them to start gelling, right? If their offensive line has gelled and Daniel Jones has figured out how to use the weapons that he has, specifically Malik Neighbors, those are the kind of ingredients you would need to beat Dallas here. I'm not saying the Giants can't win this game, but I think like if they win the first 2 games and have a little bit of momentum, that changes everything, right? And if the offensive line starts gelling, then I think like this game I'd view it differently. But right now, the way I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it straight up and I'm saying I don't see a win here. So you have us at 2-2 after 4 games. I have us at 1-3. Now after the Dallas game, we have a little. This is your mini bye, right?
Yep.
So you have what about
like a 10-day break?
10-day break, I think, because it's a Sunday game, right?
Yep.
And you're flying to Seattle, but you have like the mini bye after Thursday night, and week 5 against the Seahawks. Giants at Seattle. The Giants are 3.5-point underdogs at Seattle, which is actually better than I thought they would be, to be honest.
Yeah.
So what do you think here? For the last 2 years, Seattle's handed it to us.
So we talked about this earlier. I just want to throw this out before we get into this. I mentioned this to you as something that Weiss from NYG Weekly brought up, and I thought was an interesting point. And is if Daniel Jones is, we mentioned he's going to have the chance to, the best offensive line he's had, best wide receiver core he's had. He's going to have a chance to prove again that he can be the quarterback for this team and hold that job. But I do think this is going to be the shortest leash that Daniel Jones has potentially ever had. And if he struggles in a situation like you just laid out, where we go 1-3, like you just had it, and we lose to Dallas, who very well could mess us up like they always do. I think with this mini bye, this might be the time you see a Drew Lock revenge game versus Seattle. So that's what it's very likely though. I think this is where you could see the first kind of like pull could happen if we struggle early down the stretch here. So, just for fun, there might be a quarterback swap here against his former team, even though there's really not any coaching connections over there anymore. But with that said, what do you think about this game? Cross country to play in Seattle.
So addressing that point first about the quarterback change, it's a good point, like under normal circumstances, that if you've got a quarterback that you're tenuous on, there's the injury guarantee, the whole bit. If you start 1-3 and you just got your asses handed to you by your division rivals again, and you have a mini bye coming up where you have a little bit extra time to implement a shift in the offense, this would be an opportunity. This is an exit ramp game, right? That's how I look at it. Like if they wanted to exit the Daniel Jones train at this point because he's not performing well, if that's what happens, this is definitely an exit ramp game where they can take it. I don't think they'll take it, no matter what. And the reason I say that is because Drew Lock isn't great himself. And what happens if he's lousy? What do? Do you bench him and then go back to Daniel Jones? Do you go to Tommy DeVito?
Yeah.
Like where are you headed from here?
Yeah.
This is the problem. This goes into what were you doing this off season, right? I mean, we haven't even dissected that, but like when they signed Drew Lock, we thought, okay, they're almost certainly taking a quarterback because there's no way you're going into the season with Daniel Jones and Drew Lock, right? Like, I mean, that can't be the plan. And it ended up being the plan, right? It was basically that or the Hail Mary to get Drake May, which I mean, that's not a plan, right? That was always kind of a Hail Mary. So they've put themselves in a position where you're putting a lot of eggs in the Drew Lock basket if you bench Daniel Jones here. I actually think they won't bench Daniel Jones. I don't care if they're 1-3, 0-4. I don't see them benching him this early, personally. So for the purpose of the exercise, I'm thinking Jones is still the starter. You have us at 2-2 going into this game on the road after a mini bye. I have us at 1-3. Either way, the schedule gets like even worse after this game. So this is a game the Giants kind of have to win, right? They have to win this game. They have to figure out a way, and that is a tough place to win.
Very tough.
So what do you think? Are they winning this game?
I don't think they're winning this game. Seattle has given this team fits, and they've given them fits in their own stadium. Nonetheless, traveling across the country to play them. I think it's gonna be a very good defense with Mike McDonald running it. I'm gonna go ahead and hang on.
And for those who are just joining us, Monty has Ebola, and he's dying a slow, painful death in front of us. But he's been kind enough to do the show tonight because we might take next week off too because I'm going to be at a conference. So so he was like, "We got to get this done. We got to get this done."
Allergies, man. But yeah, no, I think this is a tough matchup for the Giants. I think it's a really tough place to play on the road, going all the way across country and just a really tough environment to play in. I think Seattle's going to win that game. Unfortunately.
So just some things that like just sound horrible to think about, right? So I'm assuming Geno is their starter. We'll see. But I think he is, right? You've got to figure out a way to stop in our run game. I still don't know where it's going to be. Our run defense, I mean. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. They have a few other guys in the depth chart there. They have Noah Fant, who they brought back, as tight end. They drafted AJ Barner, the good blocker, from Michigan. But their wide receiver, my God, again, for those who don't know, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba. I mean, they're pretty stacked. And remember, they drafted the guy you and I both wanted. They drafted Christian Haynes to be their right guard to stick next to Abraham Lucas and next to Olu Oluwatimi, my guy.
Yeah,
be their
starting this year. Yeah,
right. And and they have Laken Tomlinson as their left guard. So with Charles Cross, obviously, they have a pretty damn good roster on defense. They have Leo, right? They re-signed Leo after the trade. They have Boye Mafe on the outside. They've got some players, man.
They got Love.
They've got Julian Love. Obviously, their secondary, they have Devin Singletary. They have Tariq Woolen.
Witherspoon.
I'm sorry, Devin Witherspoon. I mean, so they're just a bad matchup. That's the thing. They're just a bad matchup.
It's a very
I'm counting a
talented
loss.
roster. Yeah.
And this is another team where like if they have really good quarterback play, they can make a run.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
but I don't. I just have a hard time seeing us win on the road. I might pick the Giants to win this game if this one this year was in MetLife. I might say
Yeah.
we could win this game, but
Mm.
on the road this is tough. So I'm counting it as a loss.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it would be like a half a point or something like that if it was home.
so through 5 games, I have the Giants at 1-4, and you have them at 2-3.
Yep.
Now the Giants have let me see, a week later. I think this is a 1 o'clock game, right? And they have
It
they
is a Sunday
or
night football.
Oh, they have Sunday night. Okay, the Bengals are Sunday night. My mistake. So the following week, they're home against the Cincinnati Bengals. Sunday night football. Both of us have them coming into this game with a losing record. Joe Burrow is back, looks healthy. That Bengals roster is again like just an outstanding. They've done a really good job of building that roster, obviously around Joe Burrow. The weapons they've put around him. We all know about Jamar Chase. We know about T. Higgins. They lost Tyler Boyd, but who did they draft? They draft Jermaine Burton,
Great
who's
pickup.
a really great receiver, and I think he's going to end up winning that slot receiver job. And obviously, they actually signed Mike Gesicki. They drafted Eric All and Tanner McLaughlin. They have Drew Samples, and our friend Nunu talks about, Bengals fan Nunu talks about, like how Joe Burrow does great as long as he has a tight end that he can trust to catch the ball, and he
Yeah.
has that now. They have Zach Moss and Chase Brown in the backfield. I mean, this is again just another loaded team. Their defense is very good. They always draft well on defense. I mean, they went ahead and got Chris Jenkins in the second round. I
Mhm.
wanted him, and they
Yep.
took him. Um, they've got to this is tough, man. Like I know it's at home, but they're just a much better team than us. So they're 4.5 point favorites in MetLife. I can't see us winning this game. How about you?
Yeah, 4.5 point favorites. Honestly, think it probably should be more. I mean, look, if Joe Burrow is hurt, I still don't think I'd pick this game as a W. They have such a talented roster that you saw the type of success they had with injured Joe Burrow last year, and backup quarterback play. With Joe Burrow, assuming he's back, this is truly one of the best teams in the NFL. This is a true Super Bowl contender. Giants aren't on that level. Simple as that. Where I don't expect to win.
Okay, I agree. So I have the Giants at 1, and this is depressing. I'm sorry, DK. I have the Giants at 1-5 after 6 games. You have them at 2-4 after 6 games.
Yep.
A week later, this is a 1 o'clock game. At home against the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley coming back to MetLife.
Yep.
The Eagles, as you guys know, like they faltered down the stretch last year, completely fell apart. The Giants smoked them, worth every moment of that game. Smoked them in the final game of the season. Without going into too much of a deep dive of the Eagles' failures, their offense struggled largely because they did not run the ball enough, and they did not have any over the middle passing game by design. It was all outside stuff, and they just couldn't get the ball there. They have added Saquon Barkley, but they've lost the best offensive lineman potentially in football in
Yep.
Jason Kelsey. And the question is, are they a better team than last year? They've changed. They now have they got rid of Brian Johnson, and then they bring in
Kellen
Dallas's
Moore.
old Kellen Moore, Dallas's old OC, who doesn't run the ball a lot,
Yeah.
right? He doesn't. And what do the Giants struggle against theoretically? Running, stopping the run. So again, Giants at home, 4.5 point underdogs. What do you see here?
Yeah, and don't forget they brought back Vic Fangio, and that's a big add for them as a defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I mean, I'm going to stick consistent. I'll give the Giants a W, even though again, just like with the Cowboys, I don't necessarily expect it. It's just giving them, the home, giving the division teams a home, and that's about the win. That's about it. But as far as actually thinking of what I'm going to do, I mean, look, the Giants. I expect the Giants have a better chance of winning against Philadelphia than they do Dallas. I'll say that. That's not. I don't think that's just bias based off last year, because that's how this division works. So one team's good one year, another team's good next, and right. And as of late, it's been Dallas and Philadelphia. It's not even that. It's not that because we beat them last year. It's because Dallas owns us. Dallas has actually absolutely owned us, and we have played close games with Philadelphia, and they have won them most of the time, and they will probably continue to win them this year. They are a much better team than we are. They are also another Super Bowl contender, but we tend to play Philadelphia a lot closer, at least than we do Dallas. I think losing Jason Kelsey is a huge loss. I think they're going to absolutely feed Saquon Barkley the ball. I think they're going to give him the ball 30 times, or at least in his hands, whether it's through catching the ball or running the ball. I think they probably find a way to win this game and try to make Giants fans sick with Saquon, but maybe they'll overextend themselves trying to just give Saquon the ball. That's a Sirianni type attitude, to do that type of shit, and maybe it'll be to their detriment. But they're a better team. As simple as that. But it's a division game, so you never know.
So you're picking a Giants win because it's a home division game, and you're sticking with your philosophy.
Yeah,
I'm picking a Giants win outright. Forget the division win.
All right,
we're not losing to these fucks. Not again. No. Fuck them. They took Saquon Barkley. Now he gets to keep losing. That's what he does in this game, right? Saquon Barkley does in the Giants Philly matchup is lose. So he gets to keep losing. You stay on that side, Saquon, on the losing side. The Giants are going to smoke them again. That's what we're going to do. Somehow, some way, we're going to beat them. Vic Fangio's style of defense has become suspect. It has. People have figured out ways to beat them, and I'll tell you right now what you can do against Vic Fangio defense. There are two guys on this team that are going to toast Vic Fangio's defense. Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors, because Vic Fangio's defense is going to give them the underneath stuff and give them the space to operate. I don't care who the Giants quarterback is in this game, just get them the ball, and they are going to smoke that defense. They are going to drive them crazy. And Fangio, you know this, he doesn't adjust. He plays his defense, his cover two shell, the bend but don't break. He'll rotate the safeties, but he will not change that shell. He will leave the middle of the field open. His whole theory is take away the explosive pass play. Well, guess what, Fangio? We don't have explosive pass play, so
Yeah.
But we have Malik Neighbors and we have Wan'Dale Robinson. Giants are going to win this game outright. This is the game where this is looking like a bad season, but if I was going to pick a game to go to, I'm not even joking. I would seriously consider going to this game because I want to enjoy this one. So I'm picking a Giants win. So you have the Giants at 3-4, and I have them at 2-5 after 7 games. After Philly, they go on the road to face their cousins, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Rooney family.
Just got the NFL draft in 2026.
Which we will be at, right?
Yeah, we gotta go.
We gotta go to I think a lot of Giant fans plan on going to that draft because that's going to be fun. The city of Pittsburgh is cool.
Yeah.
So the Giants and Steelers. Giants are 4-point underdogs on the road. This is another Sunday game, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, this is a Monday night game. I'm sorry,
Monday night football. Yeah,
Monday night football game. Okay, so Monday night prime time at Pittsburgh versus their cousins, Russell Wilson versus Daniel Jones. We're gonna get dog walked, aren't we?
Let's see. So we got +4 in that. Oof. I mean, +4. I feel like for some of the ones we've seen here, I like the fact that Seattle is +3.5 and Steelers +4 is crazy to me. I think Seattle is a better team than Steelers are. Steelers always find a way to win 8-9 games, but I don't think they're that good of a football team.
It's the Mike Tomlin effect versus a new head coach.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think this is a winnable game, be honest with you. I'm not going to pick the Giants to win this game, but I think it's a winnable game. I think that the Giants very well could come away with this game. I feel a lot worse about it because it's a Monday Night Football game. I feel a lot worse about it because it's an away game. But if this is 1:00 at home versus the Steelers, I think I probably pick the Giants to win this one. I think this is a winnable game. I don't think the Steelers are that good. I would not surprise me. I think this is a game where season's faltering. This could be a statement win on national television. I'm kind of put themselves back in it, but I will be giving them the loss with that said.
Yeah, we're going to lose this game in my mind. Mike Tomlin is a coach I don't want to go up against on the road on Monday Night Football with Daniel Jones as my quarterback. That just sounds
Yeah.
like a terrible, terrible
It,
thing. Like
it,
that
it'll be
matchup was
Drew
awful.
Lock or Tommy DeVito. Don't worry.
Just as bad. And the Steelers are a good football team. Like, say what you want. Mike Tomlin, like, somehow they win 10 games or 9 games every single year, right? This
Yep.
is a good, and they have a solid roster. Omar Khan came on at the same time, have gone into Pittsburgh and beaten the Steelers before, back when Eli Manning was, our quarterback, but still, they've done it.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to win this game on Monday. I just hate Daniel Jones on Monday night in Pittsburgh. I just hate that. I think, coming off it just feels like the letdown game. Like, we're both saying they can win that game against the Eagles. And if they win that game and then they're like, oh, Monday Night Football, prime time, momentum, this is exactly where like they always like shit the bed.
Yep.
So I'm picking a loss here. Even if it's a close loss, I'm picking a loss. So you have us after 8 games at 3-5. I have us at 2-6. We got
Yep.
2 more games to the bye. The next week is a short week, right? But we have a Sunday night game, a Sunday afternoon game at home against the
Yep.
Washington Commanders.
And
And the
it's another
Giants
game
are
we're a favorite in.
by 1.5, which is basically like an even.
Yep.
Like, it's
Like
interesting. Like,
neutral
yeah,
field, essentially.
yeah.
Would be
So,
even.
what are you picking here? You pick the Giants to lose to the Commanders week 2. I picked them to beat the Commanders. What do you have here?
Yeah, I mean, well, to stay consistent, obviously, I'm picking the Giants to win here. But with that said, I do think the Giants could win this game. I don't think that's a crazy thing that they have us, a favorite in this game. It's a home game versus a team, quite frankly, that we have owned. And do I think that they could change that this year? Absolutely. They're getting better. They finally got their quarterback, but much kind of like on the opposite side when I sit with Dallas, like if I was a Washington fan, I'd be like, I'll believe it when I see it at some point, because it just has not gone their way. No matter, they can beat Philly every single year, but somehow they lose to us. They can't figure it out versus us. It's a new coach, it's a new GM, but home game versus Washington, I'm gonna feel good about that. Maybe that's stupid of me. Maybe this is a new Washington, but prove me wrong, because I'm gonna pick us versus Washington at home every single time. Just no matter how bad we are, we've found a way to win those games. So I'm gonna pick us versus Washington, even though it's a slightly short week there coming off Monday Night Football.
Yeah, we're not losing to this team. Like, I've done this before, and Jabri's like, we're never losing these guys, and he's right. Like, we're not losing them. So until we lose to them, we're not losing to them, right? So
Yeah.
like, that's just how I am with them. I'm picking a win here. I just think the Giants are a better football team than them. Now, you can argue that the direction of the organizations are different, and that favors the Commanders. I think that's a very fair argument. I think the way they drafted their first year with Adam Peters that should be worrisome to Giants fans. Like, that man can draft, especially if those players start to hit, like I think they will. They got their quarterback. We'll see what happens with Jaden Daniels, but they're putting things together. But this year, I think the Giants are a better football team, so I'm taking a win here. So after, where are we, 9 games in, I have us at 3-6. You have us at 4-5.
Yep.
So you can go ahead and update that. The following week, let me see, where are we on the schedule here? The following week, the Giants play the next Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. game in Germany against Bryce Young and the Panthers. This is technically a home game for the Panthers and a road game for the Giants. So the Giants get a free road game essentially here.
Yep.
The Panthers lose a home game. The Panthers are favored by 1, which is interesting. I don't know why that is. It's not really a home game.
Or sorry, it's Giants. I wrote that wrong. Giants are favored by 1, but
okay.
But the interesting thing is here, though, I want to say Giants are favored by 1, but this is a neutral field. So I don't know if they just threw that in where it's just like, oh, they're home, so they got the 1.5. But if they didn't give them the 1.5, that means that if the Panthers were actually home, they would be the favorite over us. They were a bad fucking football team last year. So that's really interesting that's kind of how close they have them.
I don't feel comfortable about this game. I know people are locking this one down as a win. I'm feeling this is what this reminds me of? Do you remember 2022 and everybody was penciling in Detroit as a win before the season, or Seattle as a win before the season?
Yep.
It feels like that. It
Mhm.
feels exactly like that this game. So number
Yeah,
one, I think people are out on Bryce Young way too early. This is
agreed. Way too
the
early.
the kid was fantastic in college. He deserved to go number one overall. He went to a horrible situation where the owner wanted him, and it was very clear the head coach did not. Um, there was an interesting pod recently on Move the Sticks where Dan Jeremiah's pod, where he talked about how two different teams handled their rookie quarterbacks last year to develop them. And he talked about how the Texans developed CJ Stroud. And it was really fascinating. He said that in the first two games, CJ Stroud had 59 and 57 dropbacks out of like 70 plays or something like that. Right? 59, there's a huge number of dropbacks, but it was all like quick game. 3-step drop, take the slant, take the screen, take the throw to the flat. It was all checkdowns and easy stuff, right? But it was a
Yep.
lot of dropbacks. And it was really designed for him to learn the pace of the game and get used to dropping back in the NFL. They almost didn't care what happened. One of those games they got blown out by Baltimore, and they just kept him going. And they had him come out at the end of the game, and they run like a 2-minute drill where he just dropped back, and every single play he threw the ball, and every single play was a layup. Every single play, and they just had him pad stats basically, get completions, get his confidence up, and basically get used to the feel of the game, the speed of the game. Watching the other team, switch on defense. After those first two games, he did not throw the ball. He did not drop back to throw the ball more than 35 times ever for like the next like 8 games or something. They really limited him after that. And they switched the way they had him read the field. They turned it into like half field reads, high to low, throwing a lot of posts to Nico Collins and getting comfortable with what he liked. By this point, they were throwing the ball less, running the ball more, but he had become comfortable with the speed of the game. And he was hitting more home run shots. And then after that, they expanded more. That's when he really took off, right? So you could see that the way Bobby Slovic developed CJ Stroud was very deliberate, right? They had a plan.
Mhm.
They had a very clear plan. Like we're gonna get him out there, just throw him into the fire and have him see the speed of the game and get used to things, but not leave him out there to die. Like we're gonna do it all easy, quick game, right? And then bring it back and then see what he does. The Frank Reich fraudulent approach to Bryce Young was never to have less than 35 dropbacks in the first 12 games. It was
Mhm.
all pass, 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 pass every single game. It was all full field reads. There was no easy stuff. There was nothing simple for Bryce Young. The offensive line was bad. It was a disaster for a rookie, and you saw Bryce Young regress as the season went on. Right,
Yeah.
it became bad for him. Um, I really feel like that hurt him a lot in his development last year, but that is not who he is. I think they're going to slow the game down for Bryce. They brought in weapons. They brought in guys. They traded for Deontay Johnson. They drafted Xavier Legette. They still have Adam Thielen, right? They still have Mingo for what I don't know what he's going to be,
Yeah,
but
I
they
mean,
draft
at this point, Mingo's depth, which is crazy from where they came from.
right. They drafted Jatavian Sanders, the
Mhm.
pass catching tight end from Texas. They drafted Jonathan Brooks, the best running back in the class from Texas. They loaded up the line. They paid for Robert Hunt. Yes, they lost Brian Burns to us, and their defense is a little suspect. And this is a game where we should be able to put up points, no doubt about it. However, I have a feeling that this is going to be a tough game to win. I think CJ Stroud, by this point in the season, will be hitting his stride,
Bryce
in my
Young.
opinion. I'm sorry, Bryce Young, he'll be hitting his stride. Anyway, that's a long way of saying I think this is a loss.
Okay. So
All right, go ahead.
I will say I'll add on to what you're saying is as I agree with you. I think people are counting on Bryce Young too early. I mean the Panthers did everything this offseason to right the wrongs they did last year. They hired a head coach that a lot of people did not like really pick as a top head coach candidate. But the reason they picked him is because he's great with quarterbacks. The great work that he did with what was it? Who did he obviously with Baker, but who did he do it the year before with?
With the year before was Brady, wasn't he?
No,
He was. It
it
was.
came from somewhere else, I think. Regardless, I could be wrong. Regardless, he has a resume of working with quarterbacks, and
I'm trying to
he
figure. I'll look it up. I can't
yeah,
remember. Yeah.
but
Go ahead.
They brought in weapons for him.
Oh, with Geno. He was with Geno in Seattle.
Geno.
That's it.
He did a
Yeah.
great job with Geno Smith and revived his career, revived Baker's career. And they brought him in because of what he did. They built the offensive line. They built the receiving core. They're doing everything to fix what they did wrong. And I do think that Bryce Young could be the player that they drafted him to be. I obviously they did not have the first overall pick despite earning it. They still ended up getting into the first round, and they got Xavier Legette, who was going to be a huge get for that offense. I'm with you. I'm not ready to write this game like at right in the stone that we won this game. It's nice that we got an away game on a neutral field. I do think this is on paper one of the worst teams we're going to play this year. With that said, I'm going to give us a W. But I totally see where you're coming from, and I do think people need to be wary of writing off the Panthers too quickly.
Okay. So then the bye hit. So through 10 games, Monty has the Giants at 5-5, which is actually really outstanding considering what could happen this season. I have us at 3-7. I'm putting a loss down here. So
3-7.
yeah. So I'm 3-7. Monty's 5-5. At the bye comes week 11, and then the Giants are home against the Bucks. I think this is a Sunday game. I want to say. I don't think this is prime time. Right?
Bucks is a 1:00 game.
1:00 game. Okay. So home against the Bucks on the 24th. After the bye. Bucks were a playoff team last year. They knocked Philly out in the wild card round. Baker Mayfield hit his stride. They still have Mike Evans. They still have, they still have a good roster. They still have, just an overall solid team. Nothing spectacular. They're kind of a team in flux, but they're a borderline playoff team again, I think, on paper. The Bucks are going to be favored by 1 point against the Giants right now. This is a kind of a pick'em game, I would say, right? This is like if you're on the optimistic side of the Giants season, this is a game you have to win at home.
Yep. +1. So.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the schedule ahead. I'm not seeing a ton of wins. I really feel like this is a game where, in my mind, you're 3-7. They're coming off the bye. You're at home. I'm giving the Giants a win here. What about you?
Yeah, man. So coming off, I'm always a sucker for coming off the bye. It never works out for me. I always pick the teams off the bye, and I always fucking lose off the bye, and has the opposite effect that I want. With that said, I'm gonna fall into that trap again. I think extra week prepare. Coming off the bye, I think coming off a win coming off of 2 wins. Coming off 2 wins, and I was winning Washington, winning us in Carolina. So coming off back-to-back wins, coming off a bye, playing the Bucks. I think the Bucks are a team very good team. You laid it off. They're a good team. I think they are a team that's going to come down this year. I think you see it every single year. You see a team that is overachieves, makes playoffs. Buccaneers are a prime example of a type team that does that. And I don't think they're going to suddenly turn into a terrible team, but I think they're going to come down from that. I think that they're probably closer to a 7-8 win team. And I think that's probably what they'll be this year. And I think we're going to hand them one of those losses. I think a home game off a bye, all that's considered. I think this is a winnable game, and I think we'll win it. So I'm going to give.
Okay, so we both have wins here. That takes your record of the Giants through week 12 at 6-5, and my record at 4-7.
We're over 500. Not going to last long, but we're over 500.
4 days later, the Giants are at Dallas for Thanksgiving. They are 8-point underdogs on the road. Thanksgiving game. There to ruin our turkey. We've already discussed Dallas. I don't see us beating them in this game. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say my thing aside. The road Cowboys are home, division game. I'm going to give them the win. They're going to ruin my Thanksgiving. They're going to absolutely fucking ruin it. I have all these Cowboys fans in my family. My cousins are Cowboys fans. My dad's a Cowboys fan. It's gonna, my Thanksgiving's fucking ruined this year. So thank you, schedulers, for ruining my Thanksgiving. We're going to get destroyed in prime time, and I'm going to fall asleep on the couch after eating too much turkey and drinking too much beer, and that's the only way I'm going to cope with it. So unfortunate there.
All right. So through 12 games, you have us at 6-6, and I have us at 4-8.
Yep.
Ugh, that's tough. Maybe I'm being too harsh on them. Um, you know,
I think only
but
the Panthers one was like, and like you get Panthers and the Vikings loss, which are the two of the three they're favored in. That's a little bit harsh, but you gave them other games, so
yeah. Uh, Giants are +1. Our home favorites. No, they're home underdogs against the Saints the next week. The Saints are This is what is this? Is this a Sunday game or Sunday 1 o'clock game?
we didn't say, by the way, we're +8 versus Dallas at Thanksgiving, so they think we're gonna get killed too. That's the biggest line of the whole season. They do not feel good about us on Thanksgiving versus Dallas.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So the Saints, Giants are going to be +1. They're 1-point underdogs at home against the Saints. Is this a Sunday game? I think it is. Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, 1 o'clock outdoor Drew Carr. This is a W for the Giants. Like, I mean, not Drew Carr.
Derek
Carr. Yeah, like the Giants are winning this game. Like, I don't care. Like, yes, the Saints smoked us last year in the dome. It's different. We're gonna win this game. They're not gonna beat us in MetLife. Not in my opinion. So I think this is like the Bucks game to me, where this is a team that could beat us, but they're not going to beat us at home. And the Giants are going to pick up a W here. What do you think?
Yeah. You know what? I think I was originally going to give them the loss, but no, you also have like another of like extended bye here. You got the long break after Thanksgiving,
That's
something to
right.
prove.
By the way, this is the game, in my opinion, where if you're going to bench Daniel Jones, so in my world, you're 4-8. You got to post Thanksgiving. You just got your asses handed to you by the Cowboys, right?
Yep.
If you're 4-8, he's probably performing at a average to subpar level at this point, right? Maybe below average level. If you're concerned at this point about the injury guarantee and you're protecting yourself with 5 games left on the schedule, to me, this is when you bench Daniel Jones, by the way. And
Yeah.
you put Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito, somebody else in at this point.
And my 6-6 world here, they're keeping them in.
Yeah. So we have a different perspective on this. So I'm picking a Giants win. Are you picking a Giants win here?
Yeah, I'm gonna give them the win here. I think it's a team that they're close enough with. I do think Saints could have a better year than they did last year. But home game, see, you don't want to play Saints in the Superdome. You get them at home. They are scrapping to keep that team together with the cap that they have and how much they've allocated there. Still a really talented roster in some areas, but yeah, I think the Giants can win that game. So I'll give them the win there. And I lied. They're going to be over 500 one more time here.
I mean, you have them fighting for a playoff spot at this point.
Yep. Yeah, it's not going to go up from here.
I have them at 5-8 after 13 games. You have them at 7-6.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Following week versus the Ravens, also a Sunday afternoon game. If I'm not mistaken, this is not a Sunday night game. Although we're at flex schedule at this point. So, but I don't think that's going to be flex.
It's a 1 o'clock.
Yeah, this is at home against the Ravens, 6.5-point underdogs at home. This is like being a 10-point underdog. The Ravens did lose several coaches and they lost some players this offseason, but they are a vastly superior team.
They're a great football team.
Yeah, this is just, it's hard for me to see a win here against the Ravens. What do you think?
Yeah. I think the Ravens again are one of the best teams in football. Another true Super Bowl contender. Very, very, very good football team. They're losing this game. Pending like a Lamar injury, and even then, they even then continue to succeed without in those situations that have come up many times over the years. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I feel comfortable giving the Ravens this one.
All right. So you have the Giants at 7-7. I have the Giants at 5-9. Week, what are we at? 16, right?
Yep.
Week 16, the Giants are at Atlanta. The Giants are +4.5. They're 4.5-point underdogs on the road against Atlanta. On paper, tough matchup. I'll be honest though. To me, this is a team the Giants can beat. Um, Atlanta, everybody is assuming they're going to be a fantastic team, and obviously, Bijan Robinson is a problem. He's a real
Mhm.
problem, uh, and I have a lot of respect for Raheem Morris, but he's a new coach, new quarterback, new quarterbacks, whole new system. They did bring in Darnell Mooney I believe, right? He's their second wide receiver to complement Drake London.
Yep.
Um, they have Kyle Pitts, who has done nothing so far in the NFL. Maybe Kirk Cousins will use him, but there's just something about the Atlanta Falcons that says to me like they are going to fade towards the end of the
Mhm.
season, and I have a feeling that this is one of those games where they're going to fade. By the way, that's pretty much a Kirk Cousins hallmark is fading right at the end of
Yeah.
the season. So I actually have the Giants pulling off an upset here and winning this game somehow, some way. They're going to find a way to win this game. So I'm putting this down as a W. What about you?
I think this is a team that's like continued to like succeed despite some of the worst quarterback play in the NFL over the last couple of years. And I think with them adding Kirk Cousins, who is a very good quarterback, I think that this is, maybe has its holes on the defense, but guess what? You got Raheem Morris, who is going to do his best to hide those deficiencies on defense. You got, you're bringing in an offensive coordinator from the Sean McVay system to run the offense with,
Zach
you know,
Cunningham. Yeah.
yeah, and reunite that with Kirk Cousins. So I think this is going to be a good football team. I hear you're saying where they might not be as good as what people are making them out to be, but I think they'll be good enough to win at home versus the Giants. So I'm going to give us the loss here.
All right, so we have a different view on this one. I'm actually
Yep.
optimistic on this one. All right, so you have the Giants at 7-9. I have them at 6 and. I'm sorry,
Wait,
no, you have
that's
no, you have
seven.
7-8. You have the Giants at 7-8,
Yeah,
and I have them at 6. No, I can't be at 6. Let me see. Well, let's count this again. 1, 2, 3. I have them at 1,
I
2,
messed something up.
3, 4, 5. I have 6. I have 6 wins, so I'm at 6-9, and you must be at 7-8. That looks correct.
Okay, cool.
All right, so I have the Giants 6-9. You have them at 7-8. Last two games of the season, Week 17 at home against the Colts. The Giants are 2-point underdogs against the Colts. The last time the Giants played the Colts, Week 17, they put on a show. Landon Collins got a pick six. They played "Go DJ." That's my DJ. That was the beginning
Oh
of
yeah. Fuck, I forgot.
yeah.
I'm like Lane Collins, but oh wait, he was on that team.
Yeah, that was the beginning. That was the beginning of hell for Giants fans who wanted to see change.
Yeah.
It was the gaslighting game. For this organization that started a lot of problems.
It
Um,
was damn fun though.
mhm. And we smoked them that game. We're not smoking them this game, in my opinion. I think by this point of the season, Anthony Richardson's going to hit his stride as a quarterback. I think Jonathan Stewart's going to be is going to be Jonathan
Jonathan
Taylor's going to be
Taylor.
very healthy and strong. This offense is going to click over there in Indianapolis. They've added weapons. They got AD Mitchell,
Mm-hmm.
to add to that wide receiver room. Outstanding player to add to Josh
Michael
Downs, who's an
Pittman.
underrated rider. Yeah, I mean, and Michael Pittman. Um, I just think Anthony Richardson is going to be a significant problem for the NFL. Like significant problem. Momo has PTSD from that Colts game because he was there, and he heard them sing "Go DJ." That's my DJ. So I don't think the Giants are going to lose by 2. I think the Giants are going to lose by 22 in this game. Like I just have a feeling like the Colts are going to lay the smackdown on the Giants in this game. So I'm picking a Giants loss. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I said every year you have the teams that like regress that make the playoffs, blah blah blah. Colts didn't make the playoffs. Colts just missed it, and they just missed it with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. Colts are out for what they missed out on last year, and they have their quarterback back. They have a talented roster. They have seemingly a pretty good coach. I mean, I've always been a strong supporter of Chris Ballard, even when he was kind of getting some shit at the end there. I think he's building a really good team there. I think the Colts win this game. And I think, by week 6, 7, 8 there, we're gonna be looking at this Colts game. Like, ooh, that doesn't look as winnable as it did when we were looking at the schedule before the season. So yeah, I'm gonna give us a loss here.
Don't forget they drafted the best pass rusher in this class in Laiatu Latu
Yeah,
in the
and
first round.
they
So
had one of the best drafts in general.
yeah, this is a tough game, man. Like at the end of the day, this is tough. So we both have a loss here at home to the Colts. I'll put that down. I know you already changed the record, so you
Yep.
have us. You have the Giants after 16 games at 7-9. I have them at 6-10.
Yep.
Going into Week 18, final game at Philly. Giants +5 on the road. Philly probably playing for some sort of seeding in the playoffs, I imagine at this point. We both had them win the Giants winning the first game against Philly. But unfortunately, for the first time in history, Saquon Barkley gets to be a victor on the field in the Giants-Eagles game.
They got something to play
So,
for, probably.
yeah. So I don't see the Giants winning this game at Philly. I think Philly will be. I don't think Philly's going to run away with the division. I think they're going to be firmly in the playoff hunt. This game is going to mean something. They're going to play their starters. I don't think they're going to want to repeat of getting beat down last year at the end of the season by the Giants. I think they want to go into the playoffs with momentum and optimal
Yep.
seeding. And in both of our opinions, they'll have lost a game earlier this season. There's no way they can lose this game.
No, I had them
So
losing. Oh no, I had them winning. You're right. Because I had it automatically, but I had it in my head them losing. Yeah, you're right.
so we both have a loss here for the Giants in their final game against the Eagles.
Yep. So
The final tally. Monty has the Giants finishing their season at with a solid record of 7-10. And I have the Giants finishing with a solid record of 6-11. Vegas is over under on the Giants is 6.5 wins, so we're right there. Like we're right there.
And,
We're threading that line.
and I'll say realistically, obviously we had some differences there, but if I didn't go through with like my system and like theoretically I didn't give them that extra Dallas win, I'm right there with you. So like we're very very similar here, right? That we're skirting that Vegas line. Look, could I see this? Like we lose all those division games and we can't beat Washington. They take that next step. We can't get there. Obviously, like this could be like a 3-win season. There's also games you and I disagreed on. Maybe if we win every single one that we possibly can, we're at like 8-9. But I think probably the likelihood is we're around this area. 5 to 7 wins, I would say, is probably I'd probably take the under on that just because I think 5-6 is also likely, and then 7 is probably the top of my like likely scenarios.
We're an hour and 27 minutes into this episode, and as you guys know who follow us, that's nothing. But I think this is a good opportunity for us to kind of transition and smoothly transition into discussion of the depth chart.
Yep.
I don't think this Giants team is horrible, and I think that's why I have us winning 6 games, maybe 7 games, despite not knowing what the hell is going on in the quarterback room, right? And despite having a tough schedule, and despite having coaching turnover, I just think there are elements of our team that can win football games. I really do like, what we're doing on defense. I like the youth there. I like the talent there. I like some of the pieces, especially the wide receiver room that we've assembled. And I think it's worth talking about that at this point. So this won't take a lot of time, but I think it's worth us breaking down the Giants depth chart at this point. And I think, I see people saying we're good enough to bring back Dable, good enough to be in quarterback hell. Yeah, that's exactly what I think we are in. Like guys, I don't think that I'll be honest. Like I know there are people who are predicting, like our buddy Authentic who had them predicting 4 wins for the Giants, and there are people who are worse, there are people who are higher. I don't think we're as bad as that, and I don't think we're as good as like those playoff 9-10 win teams. I think we're firmly that in hell. Like we're trapped, I think, in like 5 to 8 win territory, and
Yeah.
the only thing that's changing that, in my opinion, is injuries, right? Like injuries could drive us down, or injuries to other teams, and we pick up wins along the way. But like we're in that like roster is getting better and better every year incrementally, but it's not necessarily keeping pace with the Joneses, to get over the hump. And until your quarterback play exceeds expectation, right? This is where the rate limiting step of quarterback play affects you. For all the people who are like, well, you could win with Dan Jones. Yeah, of course you can, but at some point your quarterback has to be the reason you elevate, right? You push out of this horrible orbit of mediocrity. Your quarterback's the most likely person to push you out of that orbit. The next most likely thing to push you out of that orbit, in my opinion, is pass rush. right? It's not just it's pass rush dominating football games, and
Mhm.
that's an area where the Giants could do something. So let's go through the depth chart, Monty. We're pulling up our lads here, and we're going to do some. We call this episode depth chart diving because I wanted you guys to have the image of dumpster diving, which is what which is exactly what we're going for here. But they're actually better than that. So let's go through this quarterback room. And for those who haven't checked it out, our lads has the best depth chart. If you Google any team's depth chart, you're going to see ESPN and all the others, even the teams on depth charts. Nobody does a better job than our lads of keeping this thing updated and
Yep.
properly stacked. And they do a great job of stacking. They put the players' numbers, they put where they were drafted, where they came from. It's interesting information. Um, and they usually list on the offense first. They go wide receivers on top, then the offensive line, then they go tight ends, quarterback, running back. So let's just start, top to bottom. Wide receivers, obviously our wide receiver room has substantially improved here. Like, I mean, dramatically improved the last couple of years. So they have listed Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wandell Robinson as our starting three. And there's a good chance that is the starting three.
Yep.
That probably is the starting three. How would you do it, though? How would you do it, Monty? What would be your starting three for who are getting the
Personally,
bulk of those reps?
yeah, personally, my starting three be Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hyatt, and Wandale Robinson. And that's not a knock to Darius Slayton because I do think, short of Malik Neighbors, who, yeah, clearly is a very special player, even as a rookie, is probably you clearly can make an argument as the best wide receiver on this roster. But it simply comes down to you've made very large investments into both Jalen Hyatt and Wandale Robinson. I mean, look, Jalen Hyatt was a third round pick, but you traded up to get him and you were ready to take him in the second round. Like, he's a guy that I think you need to get on the field. I think Jalen Hyatt needs to be seeing top 3 of this receiving core reps. Like, he needs to get the reps come the player he is. And look, Wandale Robinson, I have a lot of trust in can be a very good NFL player. I have a lot of trust in Malik Neighbors can be a very good NFL player. So, I know that there's a sense of Darius Slayton's good. You need to keep him out there. Look, we can't just keep redshirting a guy like Jalen Hyatt for the rest of his career. Like he is part of this future. And you need to figure out what you have in him. And I think at the very least, I can confidently say he is a deep threat that is valuable to receiving core. You see a lot of teams around the NFL have guys like Jalen Hyatt purely starting for them just for what they bring and how teams have to respect what they do when they're on the field. Obviously, it's harder when we have a quarterback who doesn't use that. And that's probably the biggest concern right now with Jalen Hyatt. And a guy like Darius Slayton will be used a little bit more by a guy like Daniel Jones. But I don't think because Daniel Jones would use Darius Slayton more is a reason not to play Jalen Hyatt. Neither of those guys I see as part of the future of this team. Develop the future. And if you want to keep Darius Slayton, fine. I think you could probably trade him because he's a very
Mm-hmm.
good football player and get a very significant draft pick that can help this team. Whatever. We'll see. Maybe you wait till the trade deadline. You wait on the value, whatever. Jalen Hyatt needs to be getting reps. So those are my three. And to be honest with you, I would put Darius Slayton as 4. Isaiah Hodgins is a very good wide receiver 4 to have on your team. I'd be very comfortable with Isaiah Hodgins as my wide receiver 4, and he's almost too good to have as a wide receiver 5 because he's just a good contributor. He's not a special teams guy. So what are you doing there with Isaiah Hodgins? I'm not cutting him personally, but it's almost a waste of you're not using your roster correctly by having your wide receiver 5 as a guy who doesn't contribute on special teams. So it's a tough way to navigate with all these guys on the roster. But what's your opinion, Sal?
Yeah, I would have the 3 that you mentioned. I mean, you essentially use a second round pick on Jalen Hyatt when you incorporate the value of the fourth round pick you gave up to move up
Yeah.
to get him in the third. So essentially, you've spent a second round pick on him. You use a second round pick on Wandell Robinson, and obviously you use a top 10 pick on Malik Neighbors. Premium draft capital the first 3 years on a premium position. Nothing wrong with that, right? They
Mm-hmm.
got to play. Plain and simple, they got to play. I know people love Darius Slayton. Jalen Hyatt was the Bolitnikoff winner. He was an outstanding college receiver. He was torching defenses. Yes, he has a limited route tree. And I pointed that out when you and I were arguing about whether or not he was somebody we should take, right? When we were having the first round discussion. I think we both thought he was good value in the third. But he has to be used to his strengths. What he does well, he does outstanding, right? He's a burner. I don't care if he's double teamed. He's going to split the double team and get open. He tracks the ball really well. He comes down with everything. He's a good hands catcher, and he accelerates and has several gears that no DB can keep up with. And he's a long strider. I mean, this guy is this is a must-have on your offense if you're trying to threaten the vertical game. And as good as Darius Slayton has been for this team, no discredit to him, Jalen Hyatt offers a different dimension. He really does. So personally, I am starting those three. I am absolutely, I know people want to keep Darius Slayton. I am trading him right now. I know he's not at OTAs. He wants a new contract. I don't blame him for wanting a new contract. He's probably technically underpaid for what he brings to the table as a receiver. Trade him.
Leverage.
Right. Trade him now. Trade him.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. You need to see Jalen Hyatt play. You have 14 receivers on your depth chart right now. 14.
Yeah.
You know, you are in a prime position to trade Darius Slayton. They should have done it before the draft and gotten a pick, but whatever. You can still get a pick for next year. Or you can get another player. You know, you never know. Sometimes these are player swaps. But personally, I would trade Darius Slayton. I would cut, and we'll get to this, but I would cut Darren Waller at this point because it doesn't look like he's coming back. And that's about $13 million in cap savings right there. And they're going to need that. By the way. We're getting to the point where they need cap space, right? Right now, Over the Cap has them at $1.1 million in cap space. You know, they're going to need to open up some cap space here. And obviously, there are guys who are going to be, who are going to be cut and stuff, and it's going to open up, and they'll figure out a way to do this. But I think that's easy money right there. So I'm personally trading Slayton. I'm taking those three as my starters. And then, like you said, I think Hodgins in that world, Isaiah Hodgins makes the team. I think in that world, Isaiah McKenzie makes the team. And if I'm going with a 6 wide receiver, you're deciding on probably somebody who offers you special teams value. So you're choosing, are you going Allen Robinson here? Well, I think he and Hodgins kind of cancel each other out. So one of those two would make it, I would say. McKenzie definitely has special teams value, but he can also back up Wandale as a slot guy. I think you want one more guy who offers a little bit of size and who has special teams value. And to me, that's Bryce Ford-Wheaton. And so I think he would be my 6 wide receiver. What about you?
So yeah, I would trade Darius Slayton if I could get good enough value for him. I'll say it that way. I'm not giving away Slayton for like a 6th-round pick. I think I get more. I think he's more valuable to the comp formula, honestly, than he is, and for the rest of the season than just throwing him away for a 6th-round pick. And I think you're able to get more at the trade deadline when teams start to get desperate. But if I can get like 4th, probably 4th, I'd feel good about trading Darius Slayton away for a 4th-round pick.
Yep.
3rd obviously be the perfect world, but I feel good about a 4th. So let's say I can, just for this exercise, let's say I can trade away Darius Slayton because that's what I'd preferably do if I got the right value. So yeah, I would keep Malik Neighbors. I keep Jalen Hyatt, Wandale Robinson, Isaiah Hodgins. I think the one thing I agree with you, Isaiah McKenzie's an interesting one. But so you're keeping Isaiah McKenzie. I feel like they feel very strongly about Gunnar Olszewski after how much shit they dealt with at punt return, how well he did there. I think I'm with you to do Isaiah McKenzie because I think he has enough experience there that I feel comfortable with it, and he offers much more as a wide receiver. But it wouldn't be. But I think it's one of those two, and I think I could easily see them picking Gunnar over Isaiah McKenzie. And I'm with you. Going to pick my boy Bryce Ford-Wheaton. Shout out West Virginia special teams. New Cam Brown. He's in.
Yep. So we got everybody. I think you and I disagree a little bit on Gunnar and Isaiah McKenzie. I'll say this. I think Wandale Robinson has an injury history. You need that guy who's in the slot, who's an experienced receiver. McKenzie is a very good receiver. He's a smaller guy. Like he's very much a Wandale Robinson. He's like Wandale before Wandale. And he's good in special. He's good as a receiver, as a punt returner. And they're going to have return options, by the way. Like unlike previous years, they have other guys who are gonna potentially make this roster who are going to help there. So I'm comfortable letting go of Gunnar Olszewski here. So but either way, we have 6 guys. The only difference is Isaiah versus Gunnar, but we both have, essentially Slayton off the team. This is what we would do, right? Slayton traded, perhaps for a 4th or something. Wandale, Neighbors, Hyatt, McKenzie or Olszewski, Bryce Ford Wheaton, and Isaiah Hodgins or Allen Robinson. One of those two, probably Isaiah Hodgins.
And I'll
But
tell you,
that's the
look,
six I would go to. Yeah.
I'll tell you, look, like I know there's concern up like it's okay to have like all these good players at wide receiver. To me, that's still a good wide receiver core. That's the best wide receiver core we've had in years, even with trading with Darius Slayton.
And it's built correctly. Like you have a couple of
Yep.
guys who have size. You have a couple of guys who have
Mhm.
like that Z versatility. You have a couple of slot guys. You have special teams players on that who can contribute in multiple ways. This maximizes your roster. Darius Slayton doesn't play special teams. He has no value to your
you're
team
making the young guys play.
Correct. Darius Slayton has zero value to your team unless he's getting like 80% of the snaps as a starter. That's the reality. He doesn't offer any special teams value. He has to be on the field to offer value as a vertical threat, essentially. And you drafted Jalen Hyatt. Make this make sense, right? You can't like the two. It's going to be hard for the two to coexist, right? So that's where I'm coming from. Let's go to the offensive line. Now, generally the Giants will carry 8 offensive linemen, if I'm not mistaken, right? Maybe 9, but we have 6 wide receivers. I'm going to try to, for the sake of our roster construction here, let's try to keep this at 25 on offense, 25 on defense, and the 3 special teamers that we know are going to be the core special team guys: the kicker, the punt returner, and our long snapper. So what do you, let's do that. So we have 6 wide receivers on the roster so far. How many? Let's start with, what do you say, 8? Or are you going to go with 8 here?
Yeah, let's go with 8.
Okay, so 8 offensive linemen. So what would we do to start? I'm going to let you start with what would be your ideal starting offensive line lineup, and we'll go from there with the depth guys.
So I'll tell you, I'll start from right. I'll go right to left. So right tackle, I would put Jermaine Illuminor in at right tackle. I think Jermaine Illuminor is proven to be a reliable and young. The dude's like, what, 28, reliable and young right tackle. I think he is somebody who, what you're hoping, I think a lot of Giants fans' expectations at this point is, every one of them I hear, their like expectations and hopes are he can be an average right tackle. That's what Jermaine Illuminor already is. He's an average to above average offensive tackle. So what you're hoping to get out of Evan Neal, just because you drafted him 7th overall, is what Jermaine Illuminor already is. So I am starting Jermaine Illuminor over at right tackle. I am starting Runyon over there at right guard next to him, letting those guys build a relationship over there. Easy, John Michael Schmitz at center. Hopefully he takes a big step. I'm sticking Evan Neal at left guard. And I think Evan Neal, here's the thing. If our hope is that Evan Neal's ceiling is an average offensive tackle, then why don't we start this thing over, put him at guard, and see if we can reassess where we think this guy can go. Maybe his skill sets will translate better. He is a good run blocker. Does have slow feet. Those things can be fixed by moving to guard. Yes, he is very tall. That is not common, but he is not alone there. There's guys like Andrews Pete, who was a Pro Bowler at 6'8" at guard. So this isn't like completely uncommon. So to me, you've seen guys of the past. We mentioned Sam Cosmi earlier. That guy's one of the best guards in the NFL. He was a terrible tackle and got moved into guard. You see a guy like who's the guy from Chicago who got moved to guard? They picked out of Oklahoma State.
Daniels? Who are you talking about?
No. They're guard right now. They got out of Oklahoma State.
I don't remember.
Here, look it up, but I'll just keep going. But regardless, there's examples, even like Eric Flowers, who he didn't turn in some great guard, but that guy was the bust of all busts, and he came and be an average guard. I think that right now you're setting your expectations where if you move Evan Neal to guard, you might be able to be like, this guy can be a good, genuinely good guard.
Tevin Jenkins.
Kevin Jenkins. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kevin Jenkins.
Yeah.
And he became a very good guard after being an awful tackle. So, look, that's the hope to me if I'm moving the guard. To me, you just saw what guys like Robert Hunt got paid, what like any of these guys got paid. I don't bring up Michael Wenwu as tackle like Dotson So many of these guys got paid 18, 19, $20 million. Guards aren't paid like they used to. These are guys who are getting paid tackle money at this point. They're just under that. And the high-end guards are getting paid more than what you want Evan Neal to be an average to above average tackle. If he can be a good guard, he is more valuable to this team there. So, and he has experience playing guard. He played guard in college. So I am putting Evan Neal at left guard and putting him next to Andrew Thomas, who has been working with him in the past and helping him on the tackle, hopefully can work and be next to him and help him succeed there at guard. So that's the order I would go personally if I was picking it. And I would do it right now and stop playing around with this bullshit where you're trying to cross train Evan Neal and give him a real fighting chance to learn how to play the position right now in the off season instead of learning it on the fly. But what do you got, Sal?
So I agree with your premise completely. You know, I feel the same way. This is what I would do though. I would let Neil and Illuminor stay on the right side in some way, shape, or form through camp, and I want them competing for the right tackle job. And I don't think Evan Neal can beat out Jermaine Illuminor. But in my opinion, if you're a third-year player who was a top 10 pick, if you can't beat out Jermaine Illuminor, right, essentially at best a league average right tackle, you're you're not a tackle that I would waste much more time on, right? That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
At this point, you should be able to beat them out. So to me, this is a camp decision where you make it early, but I would rotate them right tackle, right guard in camp and see who wins the job outright at tackle because I want them to get comfortable with each other. I think that's the easiest thing to do. I think let them get comfortable working side by side. But ultimately, I land where you do. I think the best rotation is Jermaine Illuminor as the right tackle. I would have Evan Neal as the right guard, just because of the ability to work with Illuminor in camp and get
Yeah,
some
if you're already
familiarity with
doing
him.
that, play him there. Yeah.
Right. That was just the way I would do it. It's not what they're doing, by the way, but it's what we would do, right?
Mhm.
JMS would be my starting center. I'd have John running in at left guard where he has plenty of snaps played, and I looked it up, he actually played a little bit better there at left guard than he did at right guard, even though he played more
Mhm.
recently at right guard. But he's a veteran. I like the idea of having a guy who is a solid left guard, nothing spectacular, but a solid left guard with experience playing next to Andrew Thomas. It gives Andrew Thomas that finally, like a stable veteran next to him, you know? No more projects next to Andrew Thomas. So put a stable left guard next to Andrew Thomas on the left side, JMS at center, and let Illuminor be the right tackle and Neil be. And you already talked about the value of guards. You know they're high. If
Mhm.
you can get Neil to be a good guard, that would be my starting five. Now, I was just doing the math here. Just go back for a second. I think we can afford to go to either 7 receivers or 9 linemen here.
Mhm.
I think 9 linemen probably has more value because of how we've seen guys get hurt in the past over
Yeah.
7 receivers. So I'm going to go with 9. So those are our starting five. In terms of our bench guys, our 4 depth guys, I think Josh Azudu makes this team. They haven't been playing tackle reps again.
Mhm.
Uh, um, I don't necessarily agree with that, but again, I don't know how good the guy is or how strong he is. Obviously, they're concerned about him playing guard, but he's got to make the team. Hopefully, um, Austin Schlottman has experience playing center. I think you want a backup center, so I think he's number 2. Aaron Stinney's
Mhm.
an experienced guard. He's number 3. And then it's a matter of who your fourth guy is, and then there's a bunch of guys to pick from. And I would just say whoever wins the job outright, whether it's Marcus McKeithen, whether it's Matt Nelson, hell, even Jalen Mayfield, or the kid Jake Kubas, the UDFA they signed. Somebody's going to outcompete somebody else for that job as like a rotational piece. Um, Personally, what I would do is I would sign
Yep.
a swing tackle here and bring them into the fold. If I'm going to go
Mhm.
with nine guys, I want a true swing tackle. I don't want it to be Josh Azudu. I want a real swing tackle here, because I don't want Evan Neal moving. If you move him, I don't want him moving back to tackle to swing. Like just
Yeah.
leave him at guard. Get somebody else in here. Bring in a tackle somewhere. Like Tyree Phillips is still unsigned, I believe, right? A guy like him or somebody else, just some other swing tackle you can find. These guys do become available, with roster cut downs and stuff. And I would bring that guy in to add to Schlottman, Stinney, and Azudu, and that would be my
Yeah.
9.
Yeah, look, I mean, we let Tyree Phillips become available when we were the worst offensive line in the NFL. So this there's guys that you can make a low end swing tackle out there. So yeah, I with you. I'm totally agree with you there. Those would be the ones I'd pick, and I agree. If I was going to add another, it would be signing somebody. So I'm totally with you there. So you want to move on to tight end or running back next?
Let's go to tight end. So we have 9 linemen. We have 6 receivers. That's 15 players out of the 25 on offense we're going to pick. So we have 10 more spots to go. So we have tight end, wide receiver, and quarterback. So let's go tight end first. I think they're going to carry 4 tight ends. I think they made a concerted effort to bring in blocking tight ends in this offseason because they saw their run game die when Daniel Bellinger got hurt. And they to the point where they had Darren Waller trying to, be a blocker rather than a receiver, right? I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think Darren Waller's coming back. The dude's on IG, like taking photos from the beach the other day. He's divorced. He's going through it in his personal life. I don't see him coming back, but I do think we're going to carry 4 tight ends. I personally have made this point on Spaces. I think the Giants are going to run a lot more 12 personnel than people are giving them credit for right now. I think they understand we can talk about strategy of winning games, but I think they know what they've got in Daniel Jones, and I think they know what maximizes his value. And it's definitely not throwing the ball 40 times a game. It's actually having a run heavy RPO type system, and that does require a lot of 2 tight end sets like they used in 2022, actually, with a lot of blocking coming from your tight ends lining up as H-backs. I think they're carrying 4. The 4 I would go with are Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, obviously, who they just drafted, who's an outstanding blocker and has some upside as a receiver, although he's not quite there yet. And then I think Jack Stahl and if you want to pick another, you could pick either Manhurts or Cage, or maybe Manhurts and Stahl are similar. One of them is going to make the team. They may go with both of them, but I'm going to say they're going to go with either Stahl or Manhurts, and they'll probably keep Cager as a receiving tight end. What do you think?
So I agree with you. I don't think Waller's coming back. I think that's only a matter of time. I think they'll end up going 3 tight ends, but I do agree with what you're saying, where I could see them running a lot of 12-man personnel. And if it was that, I would go Bellinger, Theo Johnson, and Chris Manhurts. That's how I do it, because I think Manhurts is the better blocker, and I think you have a little bit of good two good two-way guys between Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, and then you try to sign a Cage or a Tyree Jackson or something to your practice squad.
Okay. So you have 3 tight ends here, and
Yep,
I have
that's
4.
what I would do.
So right now I have 19 of my spots accounted for. You have 18. We still have quarterback and running back. So how many quarterbacks are you keeping on the active roster?
I'm keeping 3.
Okay.
What about you? Yeah. So
You're gonna have some open spots here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take Daniel Jones, obviously, because you basically have to at this point. I would preferably, I just wouldn't even risk that injury guarantee. If I could post 5th year of this guy, I would. But I'm just gonna take that off the table because it's just not happening in any world. I don't think it's realistic at all. So I'm gonna keep Daniel Jones. I'm gonna keep Drew Lock. He's fully guaranteed. He's gonna be on this roster. And I think Tommy DeVito is going to be on this roster, especially with what you've seen from Daniel Jones' injury history. Tommy DeVito performed last year. I mean, look, he's not a good quarterback by any means, but look, he was a rookie player, and you do not have a ton of quarterback talent in front of you. If you told me that Tommy DeVito took a step and got better than the guys in front of him, I don't think that's that crazy. And that's less of a testament to Tommy DeVito and more testament to the quarterback room. But you have guys you kind of know who they are at this point. I mean, other than Daniel Jones, who really you don't know who he is in the sense of you don't know how bad he's going to be off an injury. He could be his old self, or he could be really bad. And if he is that, I could easily see Tommy DeVito being the more reliable guy if he takes a step after going into this next year. Not a good place to be. It's a bad quarterback room, to say the least, speaking like that.
Well, so the new rule, do you have to, with a 3rd quarterback, does that player have to be on your 53-man roster?
I believe so, but you
Okay.
can but you can make him inactive in the game day.
Gotcha. But then I might adjust how I approach either offensive line or tight end here, and knock off a player. I might choose one of those offensive linemen or one of those tight ends and knock them out. So I'll open up one more roster spot to give me 7 to play with here for a quarterback and wide and running back based on that, what you're saying. Because I think I had that mistaken. So yeah, I would agree with you. They want to keep DeVito on the roster, most likely. So if that's the case, it's going to be Jones, Locke, and DeVito most likely. I think Nathan Rourke has a chance to beat out DeVito, but I think it's an uphill battle for him. I think
Yeah, I mean,
He knows the offense. He's comfortable here.
and you've seen him in
I
games
Yeah.
here.
So I think those are your three. So we have four more spots left then. So I'm taking out one of my tight ends. Let's just say I'm going to take out one of the linemen. And I'll keep my four tight ends because I really do believe in the four tight end thing they're going to do. But so I have them go with eight linemen. Then I'll knock out whoever the number 9 was. So we have four spots left for the running backs. I do think they'll keep four running backs on this team. And this is where I think that the new special teams rules are going to play a role. Um,
Mhm.
you want guys who can be versatile in special teams and who can be part of a running back by committee. No more Saquon Barkley, right? So uh, my four are pretty simple. I don't know how it's going to play out. I think it's an open competition in camp. I think they're going to want a mixture of guys who are like the zone runners that they've acquired with the zone blocking scheme that they're probably moving more towards. And that's guys like Singletary, Gray, and Tracy. But they probably are going to want a guy who's a burner. They don't have a burner. And the most interesting name on this list is Dante Miller, the UDFA that they signed
Mhm.
from South Carolina, who was previously at Columbia. For those who don't know, this kid was a UDFA simply because he was deemed ineligible for the draft, and he didn't play much at South Carolina because the NCAA took away his eligibility. When he transferred, they screwed up his eligibility. They told him one thing, then they changed their mind on him. He didn't get a chance to play. He didn't get a chance to declare for the draft. He was a UDFA. He played at Columbia, was pretty solid there. Bright kid, obviously, finished with a sociology degree. But he got to compete at the South Carolina Pro Day, which is why he got signed. Kid ran a 4.2740, and I think he put up like 34 reps on the bench, which was one more than Blake Corum. So the
Yeah.
most bench reps, and he ran a 4.27. He's explosive as hell. Nobody thinks he's a great running back, but he's a burner, and he has special teams value. He's a returner. So I think they're going to want his speed. I think he has an inside track to be the fourth running back. So I think they're keeping Singletary, Gray, Tracy, and Miller. What about you?
Yeah, man. I I definitely think Singletary is making this roster. I think Tyrone Tracy's going to make this roster. I think he's going to be a running back too coming out. And I'm actually with you. I think Dante Miller is really interesting. I think he's a guy who you heard guys like Dunleavy say you wouldn't be surprised if he was running back too. You saw Dan Duggan list him as what, like our running back 2 or 3, according just reps based on how often they were in certain offenses. Over Eric Gray. And during, you say Eric Gray had his healthy share in all 3 teams, but just based on who played the most, he had Eric Gray, behind Dante Miller. I'll say this. I think Eric Gray will make the team. If I had to guess, I agree with you. I think it would probably be 4. It would not surprise me if Eric Gray underwhelmed, if this became like a surprise, disappointing, like second year, 5th round cut guy. We haven't really seen that in the Shane regime. They haven't given up on a guy that quickly, especially, they're really just trying to put a roster together at this point. But now that, they've had a couple years to put this roster together, have mostly their own guys on there. I could see Eric Gray if they weren't even comfortable putting him on the field last year. If they feel that way again, they don't feel comfortable with their own special teams. I could see Eric Gray getting cut.
I can see where you're coming from. I just don't think it's going to happen because when you did see him run the ball, he was a good runner. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a good zone runner and he's a good receiver. I think he offers something. Now, you could say that with Singletary on the team, he's redundant, especially with Tracy
Mhm.
also in the mix, but he's an experienced running back from college,
Yeah.
where Tracy he's a projection. He doesn't have a lot of reps as running back, right? I mean, he's an intriguing player and he's really exciting to think about. But I think you do need some experience here, and there's not a lot of experience in these other four. Like Miller was a kid from Columbia who barely played at South Carolina. Singletary is the only experience back you have outside of Eric Gray. So I think by virtue of that alone, you got to keep Gray. I think you need an experienced running back here, at least in college. He had tons of reps. So I am going with those four. I think they're going to rotate Tracy, Gray, Singletary a lot, but Miller I do believe makes a team because he returns kicks and he has a speed element that they clearly are working towards on offense. That if you could find a role for him, he's a burner. Now so special teams, you've added Tyrone Tracy, Dante Miller, and we put Bryce Ford Wheaton on the team, and Isaiah
Mhm.
McKenzie. All of a sudden, you got your special teams well covered on offense here, well
Yep.
covered. and that's our 25. So let's move on to defense here. So we're gonna start with how should we do this? We should probably go with the edge rushers first, right? Or you want to
Mhm.
go the line? Let's go edge rushers first.
Yeah, let's go
Um,
ahead.
we're going 25 players again here. Um, are you going to go 4 or 5 edge rushers here? I'm probably going with 4. What about you?
I'd probably go with 4 because there's just not a lot of talent here. And you also have a guy like Isaiah McKenzie, who I assume you're going to have make the team, who can contribute here kind of a little bit as a versatile weapon who can do a little bit of edge stuff for you. So I'm going to go 4.
Okay, then I think the easy 4 are Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Aziz Ojulari, and Boogie Basham.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, those are the 4 I pick. And just because of lack of talent around here, I think that's probably the way you go. With that said, Boogie Basham's getting paid a little bit more. He has kind of that, like, that bonus that these, like, was
Oh,
his
he's in the
4th year.
4th year. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
So,
Okay.
and it's been, that's something that's killed these guys. It really was something that was supposed to be beneficial to these guys, has really hurt them. So I think that they probably force him to take a pay cut, and if he doesn't, I could easily see them saying like, Timon Fox, you're their 4th guy then.
That's a good point. That's a fair point. They were giving Benton Whitley reps last year at the end of the season, so
There you go. Maybe that.
wouldn't shock me. Yeah, it's possible, certainly. But I would say outside of that, those are probably your 4.
Yep.
How many defensive linemen are we keeping? This is going to be interesting because remember, I mean, they're going to be dependent on a 4-man rush here. So how many defensive linemen are we taking? 4 or 5?
I think I'd keep 5, just looking at the names here.
Yeah. So obviously your starters right now are Dexter Lawrence and Jordan Phillips from Buffalo, who they signed. I'm not a huge
Yeah.
fan, but
Yeah, I don't even know if
but
that's obvious, but Dexter Lawrence for sure.
I would say for now they signed him. Okay, let's say Dexter Lawrence and pick 4 guys. Your options are Jordan Phillips, Jordan Riley, DJ Davidson, Raheem Nunez, Roches, Ryder Anderson, Timmy Horn, Casey Rogers, and Elijah Chapman. Rogers and Chapman are the UDFAs who they signed, who have been impressing apparently
Mhm.
in rookie camp, especially Chapman, who's undersized but was doing a good job on a lot of drills. I think he was like 270 something pounds, right? Um,
Mhm.
an interesting one gapper, and was kind of intriguing. So I'm going to say that obviously Dex makes it. I do think Phillips is going to make the team.
I agree.
I I think Jordan Riley is going to make the team.
I agree.
I think you need somebody who can back up Dex as a solid nose. So I think DJ Davidson makes the team.
Agreed.
And then the 5th guy is up for grabs. Now, Nunez Roches is under contract, but I don't think he has a ton of guaranteed money, if I'm not mistaken. Nothing they wouldn't be, you know. Um, I have to look
I
up
can
his
check.
contract,
I'll
but
look it up.
yeah. So here's what I think will happen. I think Roches is a guy who is fighting to keep his job unless there's a ton of guaranteed money, and I don't remember, but let me see. His cap hit this year is
Yeah,
oh no, actually
it's basically all guaranteed.
wow. Okay, so he's gonna stay.
Yep.
Wow, I'm surprised at the structure of this contract. He's got all right, so he makes the team. All right, so Roches makes the team because he's all guaranteed. You actually lose cap space. I didn't realize that if you cut him. So
Yep.
that's interesting. Okay, so Roches does make the team. So maybe Phillips is a bubble guy, because I do
Mhm.
think they'd like to keep one of these rookies, either Rogers or Chapman. I think they are gonna make a run for their money to try to get a job here. So maybe it's just the 5 obvious guys. Maybe it's Dex, Phillips, Riley, Nunez, Roches, and DJ Davidson. I mean, I guess that would be logical. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a surprise cut there somewhere if one of these kids wins a job, either Rogers or Chapman.
Also, shout out Jay Ferries who's still here. We said whoever's still in the chat watching a bad teams preview video for 2 hours into the dead of all season, you're savage. Shout out anyone who's still watching this point of video. We appreciate you. Still trying to put out content for you guys in the off season.
I mean,
Despite where this team is.
you guys know how we do, and we appreciate those of you who stick with us. Like we take our time and we go through thorough evaluations and discussions, right? Like there are definitely pods that can do it more concisely and they do a little bit of a different job. We like to really dive in and have a discussion. It's just that's our shtick. So thank
Yeah.
you guys for being here as always. Um, Yeah, I think 5 guys, and I think you're gonna see, like, maybe it's Phillips who's on the bubble, we'll see, but I
Yeah.
would say 5.
I'll
I do think one of the kids is gonna make a run for the job, and I think it's Chapman. I think Chapman they really like, and I can see him winning a job here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I could definitely see Phillips going to be, but I'll say, despite the way they lifted up, they have Phillips. I know he's from Buffalo, and you have him at the first guy, and Rakeem Roches is the second guy. I could really see Rakeem Roches being a solid starter for this team. Like, obviously, he's not a pass rusher, but on a
Mhm.
down to down basis for Shane Bowen, who really is a guy who his defense is a good run defense. So far in this league. I think he's a guy who's gonna be of value, and hopefully, on pure passing downs, he's a guy that you rotate out. But he has like really good run stop win percentages and all that type of stuff. I think Raheem Nunez Roches would be a fine starter on early downs next to Dexter Lawrence, at least for where we are right now. So I think he'll be on this team. I agree with you. I'm gonna pick Phillip though, Nacho, um, Dexter Lawrence, Jordan Riley, DJ Davidson, and we'll see how those young guys go. But I'm not ready to put them in yet.
Sounds good to me. All right. So 5 there. So we have 5 and 4. So 9 on the defensive line and edge. We got 16 more players to work with on the defensive side of the ball. Let's go to off-ball linebacker. So this is where it gets interesting. Traditionally we've gone with like 4 guys in the Wink
Mhm.
Martindale era. You need good off-ball linebackers with this system. You really need guys you can trust. So I think they're going to carry. I think they're going to carry 5. Um, so let me see. That would put us at what? Uh, 5 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5. So we'd be at 14 of the 25 players.
Mhm.
But I think they're carrying 5 linebackers. What about you?
I could see 5. I think I'm gonna go 4 though. I hear where you're coming from. I just don't see anybody that makes a huge impact anyway. I think I'm gonna go 4 here. Maybe they grab somebody off of uh, you know, before training camp or when it's somebody's cut along the way. But from the players that I see that are on the team, I only see 4 guys I really see making the team.
Okay. This is where we'll differ a little bit. But here's the 5 I would probably have. Um, Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden are obvious starters.
Yep.
Isaiah Simmons should make the team.
Yep.
That's 3. And the 2 guys I would have behind them are Darius Musau, the kid from
Yep.
UCLA, and Carter
Agreed.
Coughlin. Um,
Hmm.
again, I'm looking. These are the back end of the roster guys. I need you to be a good special teamer. Darius Musau is a really good special teamer, and he's a good linebacker. I know people were like kind of upset with that pick in the 6th round. If you watch him, he's an instinctive linebacker. He's just not a great athlete, but he's a
Hmm.
really good tackler. He follows the ball well. He's a good football player. I think he'll find his way on this team, and he'll be a useful linebacker in different packages to start. Mostly a special teamer year one. I think he'll make it. And I think Carter Coughlin's he's just a solid special teamer who can play some linebacker reps for you in a pinch, and has some versatility there. And obviously Simmons is kind of I don't know what his role is going to be here in this defense, but he's such a good athlete and such a useful player that I think they'll find a role for him as a guy that'll make the roster. So that's my 5. What about you? You have
So
4, right?
So I did 4. So here's my pushback. I have the same first 4. I have Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, Isaiah Simmons, and Darius Musau. And I for all the reasons you said. I'll say this again, why I didn't do Carter Coughlin. One, I don't think Carter Coughlin really adds anything to the defense. I know he theoretically can play snaps, but I don't really think he adds more. I don't think he adds more in what you could bring a safety down in the box and do. I don't think he's like anything that's going to help your defense. And I think considering we added Musau, who's going to be a special teamer, and we went ahead and added Bryce Ford Wheaton on the offensive side to help out here. I just don't see any need to take up that roster spot with Carter Coughlin. So I'm gonna cut him here for me.
Yeah. I'll make one last counter on this before we spend too much time on it. The value of special teams going forward with the new kickoff rules are going to be bigger than ever, both on the
Mm,
return side and on the coverage side and the tackling side. I think you're going to see teams really emphasize guys who they can rely on to be like a strong unit. And I think the back end of the roster is going to be dominated by guys who are just good special teamers. I really believe that. So this is where I think a guy like Carter Coughlin has a role, because he's a solid tackle,
Mhm.
you know, in special teams. And I think both he and Muasau, along with guys like Bryce Ford Wheaton, have that ability to come down and be good tackles in special teams. And you have the other guys who are good, like, you know, returners, in guys like McKenzie and guys like Miller and Tracy. So I do think that creating a good special teams unit is going to be. Um, I really think that they're going to be an important part of roster construction this year, more so than years past. Plus, the Giants are always shitty on special teams. I really think bringing in the new coach, they're going to put an emphasis on that. That's why I'm going with 5. But I respect the way you're looking at it. So the way it stands, I have 14 players accounted for. You have 13. So you
Mhm.
have 12. You can pick 12 guys in the secondary, and I can pick 11.
Mhm.
So well, let's start with cornerback. Who are your cornerbacks? Yeah,
All right.
well, you have 12 to pick, so you can just, you know, you can do this however you want.
So I'm going to keep McLeod. I'm going to keep Flott. I'm going to keep Deontay Banks. I'm going to keep Trey Hawkins. I'm going to keep Drew Phillips. I'm going to keep Darnay Holmes. So how many are there? I have
That's like
one, two,
6.
six. Um, I'm keep.
That's
I'm
6
gonna keep.
cornerbacks.
I'm gonna keep David Long too.
So 7 cornerbacks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with 6 cornerbacks. I have 11 players to work with. I'm gonna give us 5 safeties and 6 corners here. The 6 corners I'm going with are Deontay Banks, Cordell Flott, Andrew Phillips. Those are your starting 3, presumably. Then I'm going Nick McLeod is my number 4. I am keeping Trey Hawkins on the team. That's my number 5. And I'm keeping Darnay Holmes as number 6. Solid tackler. I think Darnay Holmes is going to be useful in the system, actually. I know we like to shit on Darnay Holmes, but I think he was so out of place in the Wink Martindale system. He's just terrible in press man and man in general. Playing off man or zone, or playing more of like a hybrid safety role, I think he's such a good tackler, and he's a fundamentally sound player, that he's going to be useful. Another guy who can play special teams, right? Like a useful player. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm keeping those 6, and you have 7.
Mm-hmm.
That means we both are picking 5 safeties. So who are your 5 safeties?
So I'm actually gonna change this a little bit. I'm gonna tweak this a little bit. So I'm gonna go Tyler Newbin, Jason Pinnock, Dane Belton, Javarius Owens. I'm gonna cut Jalen Mills, and this is just weird. I'm going to leave a spot for to be named later player who just at any position that excels in training camp, and I'll just hold them for wherever they sell. So no matter how many we have there, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave it. That's how I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna cut Mills anyway and keep 4 safeties.
Interesting. Okay. So I think we're definitely keeping 5 safeties. This system is predicated on, you know, 3 safety sets. They run nickel a ton. They run dime a ton.
Mm,
You need at least 5 safeties, I think, on your active roster in this system. So I think that you're going to have 5 at all times. Now, they may not all be on the roster right now. I will agree with that. I think the 4 that are definite keeps are Tyler Newbin, Jason Pinnock, Dane Belton, and Javarius Owens. Those 4 are locks, in my opinion, to make this team. Um, Owens has to make this team. I mean, I can't imagine why he wouldn't. Um, Jalen Mills is the one guy who, like, I think he's an experienced veteran. I think he ultimately makes a team kind of like Bobby McCain did last year. But I can just see a world where they find somebody else off the street who gets
mm-hmm.
cut that replaces Jalen Mills. But I do think they're going with 5 here. I don't think they're going to use that spot for somebody else. So those are I'm going to say Jalen Mills for now, but with the caveat that I do think that they can upgrade the safety room here. They can find somebody who gets cut by another team, or that's just out there on the street if they don't like Mills or whatever. But I think they're going to have to add a safety here somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely see where you're coming from, and in that case, I could always cut a guy like David Long or something like that. But and keep a Jalen Mills or wherever we go. I think that's a good point. But yeah, I'm with
Oh,
you. I think.
actually, let me make a tweak here. Let me make a tweak to what I said. Actually, I'm going to cut Jalen Mills, and I'm going to do what I've said I would do. I'm going to slide Darnay Holmes into a flex position where he can play safety, and I'm adding Alex Johnson to the roster.
I was thinking that a little bit before, where I was like, you're like, we need our safety. I'm like, honestly, Darnay Holmes might be able to do a little bit of both.
I think
For
Darnay Holmes, I've always thought he's a safety, man. I thought he'd be a real good safety in the NFL. He's a good tackler. He's a little undersized, but he plays big in terms of tackling, right? And plays well with the ball in front of him. I think he'd be useful there. And actually, Alex Johnson's a kid I like, the UDFA cornerback out of UCLA. This kid has really good tape. Like, I mean, I've been telling you, watch his tape. He had 5 interceptions and 2 touchdowns last year. He's got ball skills. He played nickel. He's a very fundamentally sound player. He's a good tackler. He's good in coverage. He's not a supreme athlete the way I think Andrew Phillips was sort of like this really great, like fluid hip athlete. But he's solid. Like there's no real deficiency in his game. He's just not outstanding at anything. He's a little older, but I think, he's a pretty solid athlete. He's a solid player. He has great ball skills, and I think you need guys like that. So actually, Alex Johnson's the guy I want on the team. So let's just say of my 11 defensive backs, I'm going to actually make Darnay Holmes a safety in my system, and I'm going to make Alex Johnson my 6th cornerback.
Yeah, I like that, and maybe I might do the same and just knock David Long off instead. I like where you're going with that. So yeah, with that,
special teams is 3 players, right? Jamie Gillian. I know 1T wants to deport him back to Scotland, but sign 1T absolutely because 1T can snipe. All you have to know about 1T has taught us a lot of valuable lessons about football, and here's all you need to know. If you're picking somebody who's a kicker, all you got to know is, can he snipe? And if you're picking somebody who's a defensive back, all you got to know is, does he want to fuck people up? And that's it. The answer is yes, he should make your team. So yes, absolutely. Cut Jamie Gillian, hire 1T to be your punter. But other than that, it's going to be Gillian, Gano, and Casey Kreider, the long snapper. I don't think there's much mystery there.
Will my leg explode after one kick? Maybe, but it's worth the savings.
But can you snipe?
Yeah,
We'll see what he says.
But I'm with you. Gillen had a good season last year. I gave the Giants a lot of shit for bringing him back because I didn't think for less than veteran minimum, because I didn't even think he was worth that. But he had a good year. Gano, you paid him. Hopefully he can get back to his healthy form because he was a fantastic kicker. And hey, shout out Casey Kreider. I'm a Casey Kreider fan.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so there we have. We can quickly run through our rosters, and then we're going to close this thing out for everybody who's been here, for you loyal listeners who stayed up late with us. So on offense, we went 25-25-3. On offense, we had Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, with Darius Slayton getting traded. Is what we would do. And we get 3 other receivers. We picked Isaiah Hodgins. We picked Bryce Ford Wheaton because of special teams value, and then I picked Isaiah McKenzie. Monty picked Gunnar Olszewski.
No, I picked Isaiah. I just said consider Gunnar.
Okay, so that's your 6, and then we picked. I think I went with ultimately 8 linemen. And I think you stuck with 9. But I went Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, JMS, Evan Neal playing right guard, Jermaine Illuminor playing right tackle, and my 3 backups were Josh Azudu, Aaron Schlottman to be the backup center, and Aaron Stinney. You had the same 8, and I think you had somebody at 9, right?
I just had to get a free agent swing tackle, and I had
Greg Van Rotten.
Yep, and get exact Greg Van Rotten would be a perfect ad right now, and then get Neal over to left guard and do it now. That was the only difference.
I had the Giants keeping 4 tight ends. You had them keeping 3. My 4 were Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, Jack Stahl. Actually, Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, Chris Manhertz, and Lawrence Cager. And you had them keeping 3, Bellinger, Johnson, and Manhertz. We both had the Giants having Jones, Locke, and DeVito as their quarterbacks. And I think we both also had the same 4 running backs: Singletary, Gray, Tyrone Tracy, and the UDFA Dante Miller playing more special teams. 2 guys there.
But I do think there's a chance Eric Gray could be surprise cut, but I didn't do it.
On defense, we kept the same four edge rushers: Burns, Thibodeau, Basham, and Ojolari. We kept 5 defensive linemen. There was some controversy over who they would be, but it's obviously Dexter Lawrence. We think Roches, based on his contract, will make the team. We have Jordan Riley making the team. We have DJ Davidson making the team. And then the question is, will it be Jordan Phillips or one of the UDFAs, Casey Roger or Elijah Chapman, or maybe somebody they bring in?
Yeah.
Off-ball linebackers, I had 5. You had 4. I had Okereke McFadden, Isaiah Simmons, Darius Muasau, and Carter Coughlin. Monty had Okereke McFadden, Isaiah Simmons, and Darius Muasau. And then in the safety room, I had Newman, Belton, Owens, Pinnock, and Darnay Holmes as a safety. You had Newman, Belton, Owens, Pinnock, and do you want to put Darnay there, or do you want to?
I'll leave him in corner.
Okay. You have Mills or somebody else in that position.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have Banks, Phillips, Cordell Flott, Trey Hawkins, Alex Johnson, and Nick McLeod as my 6. I think that was 6, right? Or 5. No, that was 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And as my 6, and you had Nick McLeod, Cordell Flott, Deontay Banks, Trey Hawkins, Andrew Phillips, Darnay Holmes, and David Long, I believe.
Yeah. Quick question for you before we close out, Sal, because we didn't really talk about this too much in defense. 2 positions I want to ask you about real quick. Defense. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. Defense, but I said probably Roches, but I'd like, I throw it out there. I'd like to see Jordan Riley compete and see if he could really take the next step forward, and love to see if him win that defensive tackle job next to Dex. But I'd probably put the favorite as Nacho right now. What do you feel as? Who do you think the favorite is for that, and who would you like to win that job?
I want Jordan Riley to win the job of the guys who are currently on the roster, because I think he's a better run defender, and I think we need help there. And I think there's enough upside there, and the coaching up from Andre Patterson for a year, with him losing weight like he did. I would like to see what he weighed in, but I think he's weighing in at probably closer to 310, 315. I think they're going to move him to 3-tech. So I think that there's something there they like. They like his strength. So I think I do want it to be him. But I'll be honest, dude. I wanted them to draft somebody. I wanted them to upgrade this position. So if they go out and pick somebody off the street who gets cut, who's an upgrade, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think that's a position where I think you need to upgrade there. You need some sort of body that's an upgrade, some way, shape, or form there.
Who do you think's going to win it as of right now?
Riley. I think Riley's a starter.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other one I want to ask you about is, who do you think wins the outside cornerback spot opposite of Deontay Banks? So I assume you assumed Andrew Phillips going to win the slot job starting out. So who do you think wins it? I think Nick McLeod ends up winning it. I think he's proven the most. I think Cordell Flott's going to get the run, but I think McLeod, at least over the long term of the season, I think Nick McLeod's going to hold it, because I think he's just a better player. I hope Cordell Flott wins it. And hell, I hope that we see a little bit of the Trey Hawkins that we saw in camp last year. Maybe he can take the next step, because I think expectations got a little bit too high for him last year. And we saw some flashes, and that's what you want to see out of a developmental rookie guy. But what are your thoughts there?
I think it's Cordell Flott. I think he's just I think Nick McLeod's a really sound player. And he's the kind of guy who's like your depth chess piece in a secondary that's good, and he can play kind of everything. You play nickel, play outside. I think that's where you want him. I do think
Nick McLeod, love type thing.
I think Nick McLeod is the kind of guy that there's not a ton of upside there, and he could get exposed if you're playing him too many reps in one position, especially on the outside. So I'm thinking it's Cordell Flott.
All right. Yeah, that's us. We never talked about that. So those are 2, positions where that mattered, but I just want to get your opinion on that. But feel free to close this out then.
All right, man. So we've been going strong. This is 2 episodes worth right here for you loyal listeners. So we've done the whole depth chart review. We went through our schedule. I had the Giants finishing at 6-11, Monty at 7-10. Went through some other issues. So we're done. There's a lot of stuff coming up, I think, when it comes to OTAs and breakdown. But really, guys, we're not necessarily going to have an episode every week. We're definitely not going to have one next week. I'll be out of town for a work conference, and I think we're getting to that point where we're going to be gearing up for summer scouting. So Monte and I have to start gearing up, looking at the college football prospects and start reviewing them position by position. I promise you, we are not doing quarterbacks for a very, very long time. I have zero interest in going down that painful path right now. So we are going to do some summer scouting. We'll probably be back in 2 weeks, but other than that, thank you as always for being here. Follow us if you don't follow us already. Follow us at He's a Giant Pod on Twitter. Follow me at Queens_guy. Follow Monty at MONTE_CRI5TO. Other than that, yes, I do have a job, Jay Ferries. It's true. It's I don't know how much longer I have it, but I have a job. But thank you. Follow us, like, subscribe. Please tweet it out when we put out one of these episodes. We appreciate you guys as always. We'll probably be back in 2 weeks, not next week. But we'll see you around on Twitter. Until then, have a good night and go Giants.
Yeah, happy Memorial Day, everybody. Go Giants.
Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Take care, guys.